There they are. Hi, everybody. It is 24th of April, 2026. I hope you're all doing well. It's good to be here on a Friday night. Sorry we had to push the show. We had a lot of deadlines and stuff we had to meet yesterday, and they all say hi. Other than that, doing well. I hope everybody else is doing well. The locusts and rivers of blood were manageable as long as you get on top of these things early. That's the main thing. Otherwise, not bad at all. Let me just, I'm going to make a small adjustment to the lighting and to Mr. Gorn over there. We managed to clean up a lot of this stuff off of the general vicinity, and we're not quite done yet. Hang on one second. All right. How's it going, dude? Yeah, so we were doing a little spring cleaning. We haven't really cleaned the place since spring of 2014, I think, something like that, when we first got it. Oh, I don't know what's going on. Keep moving around on me. Anyway, here we are. Well, that's a quick question. Red Viper says, Bill, what's your go-to drink? I can't tell you. I would die of shame. So it's obviously single malt Scotch neat, which I like actually. But yeah, this will be the end of me right here. Pretty much the end of my career. I've been asked the one question that there's just no coming back from. Actually, when I go out to restaurants and stuff, yes, Steve Young got it right. Lemon drop martini, I love them. I love them. And every time I order one, I ask them if they can give it to me in a Hello Kitty glass, and they're and they just love to do it. It's a very queer drink, but I don't care. I do ask for a Hello Kitty glass, and they're happy to bring it to me because they pity me, basically. I think is probably the main reason. Not in a sippy cup, because that would be ridiculous. Uh, uh, when I went back to Gainesville the second time, went to school there from 79 to 90, 70, yeah, pretty much, 79 to 92. I went there from 79 to 82, and then I went back in 93 and did that sketch comedy show and was there for another 4 or 5 years, and had a friend there named Alex Campbell, who was part of our improv team and just a really good guy. And he was working at Texas Roadhouse as a waiter, and I came in on a date, and and he asked us what we wanted for for our drinks, and I told him, I don't know what I told him. I actually think I told him either a screwdriver or a Jack and Coke. That was honestly what I did. And he came out a few minutes later and brought her drink, and he brought me a like a punch bowl, and he had lined like the entire rim with oranges, and this thing was pink and had grenadine in it, and I think he put like 7 the little paper umbrellas in there, and he came and put it in front of me, and he just said, "Sir, I just decided to get you the regular." I said, "Thank you very much," and I said, of course, the name of this drink is a disturbing confession. Yeah, that was a fun time. It's good to have friends. Um, it's it's a high art among men, at least men of a certain age. I don't know if it's still true. I hope it's still true. I would imagine it's still true. I can't imagine we're that far gone where young men don't just constantly trash each other as a sign of affection. You were. I remember my friend Steve was here a couple weeks ago, when when I went to visit Florida, and we drove up to the Air Force Museum and so on 2 years ago, I think. He pulled up. It was about 5:30 in the morning at the airport. I took the red eye, and he pulled up in the car, and I tapped on the glass, and he rolled down the window, and I said, God damn it! I told you to wear a bag over your head. And I forget what he said. Um, anyway, yeah, the studio is looking fab. Really looks fab. We did a lot of work on getting this thing straightened out and cleaned up. So there's that. Um, and I have had like I said, a bunch of deliveries and things to do. Um, but there is a new. I'll save it for Monday. I'll have a chance to play with it between now and then. Don't have any real long, like screed for tonight. So I think, he said this is the bag, Infidel 42. That's what I would have said. Um, I'm trying to think if there's any like really. Um, I know there's thousands of these things, but I just can't think of them. I do know that when I started hanging out with my planetarium family, that these three guys were all 10 years older than me. Phil Trick, obviously Doug Gagan, and a guy named Bill DeShong. And we went out to, it must have been Lums. I think it was Lums. What a catchy name! But if you remember Lums, it was Lums, and they were going to give me a nickname, and for some reason I had like all teenagers had buck teeth. I had particularly rounded buck teeth, um, and I was taking a bite of key lime pie, and Doug Gagan decided that my nickname would be Termite. And I laughed so hard that key lime pie came out of my nose. Um, uh, so those were the days. Actually, there's something I do want to talk about briefly. Um, I've heard it from a couple different places. Uh, there's I heard one today, and I'm trying to think what the first one was. It's got to do with modern Gen Z kids, and I guess maybe even more so alphas. What was it with the Gen Z kids? It was I heard a woman who does a series of YouTube videos, and she said that the really young voice actors come in and they read and they if they want them to be excited or sad or whatever, they do the voice, but they don't do the mannerisms. They don't really get into it. If you look at really great voiceover guys, celebrities, and also the tremendously talented just professional voiceover people whose faces you don't know, when they come in to do it, they're just and that's how you get the best performance out. And they said that younger people aren't doing it. And then I saw a guy today saying that he was, I don't know, 27 years old or 30 maybe. He said, none of my friends have kids. We're all 30s, and none of us have kids. And he said, we don't dance anymore. We go to clubs, but we don't dance. And the reason for both of those cases was because they said that young people today are aware of the fact that they're on camera all the time, and they're terrified of the cringe, right? They're terrified of cringe. So they don't they don't they don't take a shot at at a bar or something, because they're going to be recorded. They're going to be put on the internet, and they don't do the big face emotions, because they don't want to have somebody put it on the internet and get the the deadly c word. That's like anathema to them. It's their that sense of like social ridicule is just the worst thing ever. And I've heard it variations of this from a bunch of different other places, where they're basically saying that young people are just so afraid to do anything that might make them look stupid. I thought I thought that was the whole point. I mean, we were we just it's not like we didn't care. It was like that was an art form for us. It was awesome to go out and look stupid, and that sense that you're like under video surveillance for your entire life. Hang on, this could be Hi, honey.
Can you order the Uber, please? Because I don't understand what my Uber showed it to me. It's like it asks me to give him the stops, but I don't need the stops, and I can't find any other solution to order. I
Okay,
just sent you the address.
okay. I'll do it right
When
now.
I go, we meet with Anita in cafe.
Okay,
Maybe she will be there.
okay.
Just send it.
Hang on one second. Say hi to the people on TV, by the way, on Stress Free Lounge. Hang on, I'll get this address in here.
Oh my. Hi. Hi, everybody.
Um,
Sorry.
it's okay. All right, hang on, working on it. Important issues here, folks. Got to take care of here right away. Just one second. Just take a minute. I'm doing my manly thing here. Hang on a second. Sorry, gang. Okay. Yeah, I know. This is. It's kind of weird, honey. It does. It's not the way it used to be. A lot easier. Hang on a second. Come on.
It used to be easier.
Hang on. Sorry. Yes, that's it. Plan my ride. Do that. Pick up now. Yes. Today. Now. Yes. Now. And then I go and do it, and it drops, and it just loses the address.
Yes.
Are you having that problem too? It just won't do the address. Sorry, kids.
Did you ask me?
I'm talking. Yeah, I'm just kind of talking to you and the audience at the same time here. Um, every time I try to enter the
The address
it
is
just that's just really weird. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry about this. We're working on something here. Hang on a second. Um, hang on. Somebody said, "Oh, it's so you so it won't when you try to do it, you're running into what?
to cafe to wait for Anita.
No, I mean, what happens when you try to use the app from your place from home?
It's asking me to add stops.
Okay, can you say like no stops or anything?
Yes, I did, and it doesn't give me any. Wow. What means?
Okay, so from this is nuts.
Okay, Billy. I don't.
What's that?
I don't know what to do, so I
Okay,
just.
hang on, we'll get it solved. Hang on, kids. Um, so pick up.
Where to go? Put an address.
Hang on. Hang on.
Okay, I think I found out.
I've got it, I think. Have you? Uh, God, honey, it's just not working.
Okay, I think it worked for me.
Okay. Well, text me back and let me know, okay, when you're in the car.
Yes, thank you so
All right.
much.
Sorry about that, sweetheart. Something's wrong with the app for sure.
Yeah, I
Okay.
know.
All right, but let me know either way, okay?
Yes,
All right.
thank you.
Thanks. Love you. Have a good
Okay,
time. Bye.
bye. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Um, the that's Uber, and she wasn't able to get the Uber thing to pick her up, and so she asked me if I could just do the Uber for her, and it wouldn't take the addresses, which is strange. Um, so anyway, there's that. Um, anyway, back to what we were talking about, the sense of like, having to be on your best behavior is kind of that. And then, look, it's hard enough to walk across a room and ask a girl if she wants to dance. It's something else entirely when you're going to get videotaped, uh, getting getting shot down, and then that's going to go on the internet. I swear, I've been thinking about this. I genuinely have been thinking about this a lot. I really think I want to do like a dating like seminar for young men, because it's what they're facing is just insane, and I know how things have changed. I understand that they're really really different, than they now than they were before. But I'm really at the point where I just think somebody just needs to let these young men know, look, here's how you do it, and and uh, and this is these are the essentials, Um, the these young guys are they when the more I think about looks maxing, the more I just want clavicular to get hit in the face with a bus. I don't want anything bad to happen to him. I just want him to have his features rearranged, not because I don't like the guy, but I think it'd be doing him a major favor, because this is diseased, man. And among males, it's really, 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 really creepy and weird. Um, this idea that the way to get a girlfriend is to be looks maxed. You know, we're going to work on that jawline and get these muscles into place, and we're gonna do that, and frame mogging, and dude McMahon. That's the dude of man's. It's best freaking name ever. Plus he's got a mahalo there. That's awesome. Um, yeah, I saw that too. Apparently, clavicular just OD'd on his drugs. I saw him basically go out. Uh, uh, Kobo Bunny Music says everyone's on guard, everyone's afraid. Seems like relationships are not worth it from all of the games and lying. It's getting, and it is becoming a civilizational level threat. This which is why I kind of feel like I just could be some use here. Um, so I'll just tell you what I would tell like a any. I can't do this from I don't have the faintest idea, but I'll just give you like just the like the brief outline here. So if you're a teenage guy, and I was a teenage guy once. Uh, I remember sitting around with my friends watching the Earth cool, and and a lot of this stuff is really hard, and in a lot of ways it's much easier now. There's a lot of guys. I saw, I got a hold of a channel. I always do this. I find something I like, and then I just binge watch everything that the guy ever did. And this guy's been he's been off the air for 4 or 5 years now, I guess. But there's a guy out there with a channel called Sorrow TV, and Sorrow TV would just read Reddit threads, and one of the Reddit threads was nice guys, uh, and um, and he just read them in a really like dramatic voice, and he's really hilarious, funny, really funny guy, and and I'm and I'm watching all of these attempts. Um, and what they're buying, you know. So clavicular and the looks maxing guys say the way you get chicks is to absolutely have to level up the way you look. That's the only thing that matters. That's number one. And you know, and I'm not saying he's wrong. The world is really changing, and everything is so superficial. You know, I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just telling you, I think there's a better way. Oh, look at that. One of the 300 Q80 says, first time I found your channel, you played the Wellerman sea shanty. Feel free to play it again a few times. I love the Wellerman, and actually Wellerman is it was a phenomenon. It was a great phenomenon. And Kimberly Weaver says, I'm watching dating for my 18 and 16-year-old daughters, and things seem normal. Very respectful young men too. That's great. I'm very, very glad to hear that. Genuinely am. But so one thing they're told is you got to maximize your looks. The other thing that they're told is that you have to go the Andrew Tate route and have just tons of money and be super buff and just completely scornful and dismissive and all of these things and so I'm looking at these texts, these long text conversations that are in fact like cringe city, and I was trying to think about what I've learned over the years, because if I were to go back in time now, instead of being like the Lord God King of Bufu of of the dweebs and nerds class of '77, I'd clean up. I would clean up because of the things that I've learned. Um, yeah, and Sarkon the Wolf says the end of marriage pushes men in the courts, punishes men in the courts. Let's talk about women's privilege class. Let's get away from that just for a second, because you're right about all of this, and that's a whole nother subject. But I went through my nice guy phase, and I got friend zoned a lot, and so now a lot of young guys think that they either go the super like kind of the nice guy thing, which always turns out to be like these guys are psychotic. They're like, I was nice to you, I was a gentleman, and you didn't show me any pics, no naked pics, so f you, you whore. What? So, as a guy who's been there, a guy who's been friend zoned, a guy who had no confidence, a guy who had no game, none at all, none. And then suddenly, in my 40s, late 40s, I got a little bit famous, and I got my confidence up, and then I became quite um, formidable at this. And so I'm trying to think what would I say to like young men about what about how to present yourself. So it's like the nice guy thing is a trap. You can't nice your way into a romantic relationship. You can't nice your way into it as the nice guy friend zone route works. Um, the you can't fake the rich guy thing. You can't fake the if you're a good looking guy, then you probably don't have any problems. But I'm just talking about regular guys, right? So if I had a group of like just regular, normal, young men here, and they said, what have you learned over the years? I tell them something along these lines. Um, Nice guys finish last, but that doesn't mean the answer is to be a dick. The most important thing, and any guy can do this, any young man can do this. The most important thing you have to do is you have to look and feel like you are comfortable in your own skin. That's the most important thing. That you're not trying to be or do anything. And the more self-contained you are, the more quiet you are. I'm not saying you need to project an air of confidence. Say, come on, baby, because you can't do that when you're 15. You can't. So I would say to them, look, what is it that you love to do? There must be something you love to do. Maybe it's video gaming or something, but is there anything a little more different or more interesting? Whatever it is that you really love to do, make that the centerpiece of your conversation. But for God's sakes, man, if I give you one piece of advice on the first date, it's this. When that date is over and you're not getting anything that night, just go into the date fully understanding that if you're looking to get laid, this is the only way it's going to happen. It's not going to happen tonight. So I would say to them, the most important thing I can tell you is when the date is over, that girl needs to go home and she has to realize that you know much more about her than she knows about you. Did you get that? You've got to do a quarter of the talking, and that's on the high end. Your job is to ask her what she's interested in. And when she tells you what she's interested in, you sit back there and listen nicely and respectfully. But don't try to show off. Don't try to brag. Women have a perfect pitch for that. That's a sign of insecurity. What you want to be is you want to be self-contained. You want to be nice. You want to be engaging. You want to be pleasant. You want to be fun. You want to be excited about things. But the most important thing is you've got to go into that date and out of that date in your head, knowing that you are doing what you want to do, and whether or not she thinks it's cool is irrelevant. Because when this date is over, you're going to go right back to being yourself. You came in as yourself. You're going out as yourself. And her opinion of you has essentially no bearing on what you're doing. Now, if you have a dream, a, women aren't looking, especially at the kind of ages we're talking about. These guys will tell you they're looking for money, and I'm not saying there's not gold diggers, and a lot of these, OnlyFans chicks they're just dumb as a bunch of rocks, and plus they're whores. But if you're talking just a regular decent girl, it's not important that you have money. It's not important that you're successful. It's important that you have a plan to be. You have a plan to be what you want to be in life. If you can come in to a date and sit down and be clear about what it is that you like and what it is you want to do, you just lay a little bit of that out there, and you are gonna, this is my plan to do this. But when that date is over, she's got to realize that she knows next to nothing about you other than you got a plan to do what you want to do, and you know a lot about her. That will completely absolutely turn the tables on this thing. 100%. 100%. And I would tell them too, I would say, listen, you have to take control of this date from the beginning. You have to take control. Women, what women want is they want somebody who is decisive. You don't have to be rich. You don't have to be good looking. You have to have a plan. If you're a fan of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you got to know where your towel is, which means that instead of saying, where would you like to go? That's not, you're already in a hole. You're digging yourself out. Where would you like to go? Can I raise my volume? I can. My volume outputs look great. They're right in the yellow, peeking into the red. I don't. I give it a little more, I guess. Let's see. I think it's about all I can do. So that's like that's the most important thing. Just plain don't be embarrassed about what it is that you're passionate about. So when I say you got to be in charge of the date, it's like it's not like, hey, you want to go out for coffee sometime, or hey, you want to go out for dinner, or hey, you want to go out to a movie sometime. You got to be more forceful than that. It's got to be something like something along the lines of I was thinking I really want to see Project Hail Mary, and I'm thinking I'm going to go maybe a week from Saturday. Do you want to come with me? That's an entirely different thing than you want to go out sometime to a movie. I'm going out to see Project Hail Mary next weekend. Would you like to go with me? You see how that completely just like flips the whole thing? Who's in control now? Who's in control? You are. You're going to the movie. Do you want to come with me? It's not, would you like to go with me? Or do you want to go see a movie? What movie do you want to see? Pick something you think she'd like and say, I'm going to go see this next week. Would you like to go with me? And instantly you are interesting, because you're not saying, I'll go if you go. I'm going. You want to come? That's actually really, honestly, God, that's 80% of it. It's at least 80% of it. This is great advice in the average or above in the looks department. Those of us who are well below average are just SOL. Not true, dude. Not true. Not true. Get that out of your head right now. Get it out of your head. It's not true. Anybody who's ever observed the world has seen absolutely stunning women going out with frickin' gorillas. It's not true. It's not true. You got to get that out of your head. Men are much more visual than women are. The catnip for women is not how you look. It's how you I almost said come off, but it's people say it's confidence. Yes, it's all of that. But what it really is actually just really simple. You cannot. Government says only if they have a fat wallet, dude. I'm telling you as a friend, okay. I'm telling you this as a friend. You are programming yourself for failure when you say that those of us who are below average in looks or don't have any money are just out of luck. We're doomed. That is a absolutely self-destructive message. You got to get it out of your head. Okay, you got to get it out of your head. And a very important part of this is who are you actually aiming at? Who are you aiming at? When I was in my friend zone phase, I was aiming for the cheerleaders. You know, I was going for these super cute girls that were they were out of my league, not because of they were out of my league not because they were above me. They were out of my league because I perceived myself as being below them. That's why they were out of my league. And so what the friend zone is, the friend zone or the hey, I just, just the whole lot of that whole kind of nice guy kind of, I saw you, this, and I thought you were marvelous, and I thought you were wonderful, and you're very beautiful, and I don't know if you want to go out with me, and I'm sorry if this is, if I'm offending you by this, and I don't want to creep you out, or I want to give you the cringe. No, just no. It's like, no, man, dude, you don't need the date. You'd like to go on the date, and you should be perfectly willing to say, I'd like to go on the date. And if she says, go F yourself, then you can say, all right, well, I hope you have a good time in life. And thanks for the time. And that's it. And then you are out of there. You move on. When I was in high school, there was a couple, one really, this one person I just had this enormous crush on, just crazy crush on. And I tried to do the friend zone thing. I thought, man, I'll do more. And the reason I tried to do it wasn't like I was trying for the friend zone. I just wanted to spend time with her so much that I would take anything, like I would do just about anything, like I'll do your homework for you or whatever. You're done. You're finished. And looking back on it, I realized there were a lot of other women or girls in my class who not only wanted to go out with me, but who would have been much more fun. Because much later in life, 30 years after, I actually did go on a date with this person I had this crush on in high school, and I was on my game. And I realized this person is actually kind of boring, actually kind of boring. But it was a nice achievement because it took me long enough. But I came at it completely differently. I came at it as a successful guy. So let me just go back to like this initial advice thing, okay? When I say like take control of the date, this is the kind of thing that are little things, and you may think they're risky things, but everything's risky. So for example, let's say that you that maybe you're going to go to a movie. Like I said, if you're going to go to a movie, you name the movie, and you pick a time that's not tomorrow, right? Time enough so that if she wants to go out with you, she can make arrangements. Not this coming weekend, next weekend. I'm going. Would you like to come with me? And if she says no, what have you lost, right? You just said, hey, I'm going to the movie anyway. Do you want to come with me? If she says no, okay, that's great, fantastic. And that's the end of it. Because if she's interested, she will say, I can't do Saturday, but it sounds like fun. In which case you say, well, I'll tell you what, if you can think of a time when you're free, let me know. And if it's before Saturday, I'll change my plans. We'll go together then. And it's just got to be, I am self-contained and I don't need this. It's not like I'm, F you, you bitch. It's like, no, that's okay. Or if she says, oh, I'm busy that night, then you can just say, got a counteroffer? And if she says, I have to think about it, then you just say, okay, well, I'll look forward to hearing from you, and get the F out of there. That's it. You walk with your dignity. And if you walk, that's the only chance you have to actually get a yes. Because nowadays, these women are so used to being pursued that if you stop pursuing them, you get their attention. And that's a really valuable thing to know, which leads me to another point that I would have made, and that is this. And I actually ended up dating, before I met my stunningly beautiful wife, I actually ended up dating some really good-looking women, and some of them were like famously good-looking women. And so here's the important thing, dude. If this girl's kind of pretty, I'm not saying don't compliment her. I am saying don't compliment her on her looks, because that is what she's expecting. And the second you do that, you are now you're not necessarily in the friend zone, but you are now in the herd. You're in the herd of people who go, wow, you really look beautiful tonight. You're really gorgeous. I love your pictures on Snap. No. The thing to do, you see, the way you get around this is you can say something that they're not expecting that is nice, but it's not what they're expecting. And if it's not what they're expecting, women start to freak out. And this is how you learn how to get the upper hand on these things. So when you meet her or you pick her up, or I guess those days are over, you meet her wherever how you're going to meet her, right? You say hi. You just say, "You look lovely tonight." That's not, "You're so beautiful." And if the dinner's going well, you can say something like this. You can say, "You have really interesting eyes." And say it in a nice way. You say, "Really interesting eyes." And what does that mean? "Oh, you're beautiful." It's not even, "You have beautiful eyes." You're not a puppy dog. You're not pursuing. I swear to God, the first thing I ever said about this 20 years ago, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, if you're a young man and you want to understand women, you need to get a cat. You need to get a cat. And I'll tell you why. Cats, women, especially good-looking women, are exactly like cats. If you call a cat, it will not come. If you chase a cat, it will run away. And if you chase it and catch it, it'll scratch your eyes out. That's just psychotic. Get a cat. Get a cat. Because here's what you'll learn about women if you get a cat. What you'll find about a cat is the more you pursue a cat, the more you call a cat, the more you grab a cat and put it on your lap and pet the cat, and you want affection back from the cat, so you just make the cat is out of there. It is out of there. It will not do it. The way that you get a cat to like you is you sit on the couch and you watch TV. And you are not chasing the cat, and you're not trying to force the cat into affection. You're just plain sitting on the cat and watching TV. And then the cat may come up and rub up against your leg, at which point you give it one scratch behind the ears, and then you stop. And the cat will slowly begin to realize that when the cat is near you, it gets these nice feelings. And it doesn't have to work. Cats are not like dogs. Dogs are social animals. Dogs, young men are dogs, and young women are cats. Dogs are like, "Come here." They're just like, they love it. Oh, if you chase a woman like a dog, you're done. If you chase her like she's a cat, you cannot lose. You can't lose. What you want to do is you want to be the kind of person that they want to be around. You want to be the kind of person that they want to be around. Kimberly says you got to break the ice before, though. Yes, it's true. But I'm getting to some of these things. See, you just have to be patient, and you have to be pleasant, but you can't be obsequious, and you can't especially be stalker. That smell is real easy. But I was talking about like taking control of the date. So you say, I hear this from women a lot. I hear this a lot from women today. Women are saying that men don't know how to lead anymore. They spent their entire last 30, 40 years telling men not to lead, and that, all of this, just ignore all of that BS. Just ignore it. So if you're talking about a date, think of a place that you can go that's nice, that you can afford. It doesn't matter if it's Olive Garden. It doesn't matter. It just a place. Look, if you pick the nicest place that you can afford, there's no sense going someplace crazy expensive, because number one, you're not going to have a good time. She's not going to have a good time. There'll be no going back there again on the second. Just go someplace you like. And by the way, this is another really important point. Okay, if you really want some like upper level advice now, everybody's heard of Olive Garden. Everybody's heard of Applebee's. Everybody's heard of all of these things. But what you really want to do is you want to go out on your own and find a small non-chain restaurant that's got really cool food, good food, is a cool location, and chances are nobody's ever heard of it, because now you are really starting to hit the sweet spot. There's a place not far from where I used to live here called the Blue Dog, and it's a kind of a pub. And so, if you invite them out for dinner, say, hey, how'd you like to go out to, you want to come with me for dinner at the Blue Dog? What, not Olive Garden or Applebee's or anything? No, automatically she's interested. Either she's heard of it or she hasn't. If she has, she knows it's a cool place, and you're cool for suggesting it. If she hasn't, she's intrigued. So most of the really great restaurants are not terribly expensive. There's lots and lots of neighborhoods, lots and lots of neighborhood restaurants, little Italian restaurants. Find a cool little place that's got good food that you can afford, and then ask her specifically if she wants to go to that place. Scout it out first, man. Make sure you can afford it. Make sure it's got a little vibe on it. But now all of a sudden you are now out of the herd, right? You're out of the herd. You're not going to Cheesecake Factory. You're going to Louis. You ever been? Want to come with me for dinner at Louis? Where's Louis? What's Louis? Oh, Louis is just a little Italian restaurant that I found I really like a lot. Food's really good, and it's a nice place to sit and talk. I think you really like it. You're getting there, man. You're like already ahead of the game. But when I say take advantage of it, what I mean is this. When you get to the restaurant, don't you worry about how this looks. When you get to the restaurant, you are going to walk over to where she's going to sit. You walk up to, if unless it's a booth, obviously, but if it's a table, you walk to the far side of the table and you pull the chair out for her to sit in. This will blow her mind. Don't bow, for God's sakes. If you bow, it's over. Just do it. Just calmly do it. And a lot of people say, oh, well, you're simping. No, you're not simping. You're controlling the date. You're controlling it. You're saying, this is my place. I'm getting the chair for you because I do this because this is appropriate for women. And if she says words to the effect of, I can get my chair myself, then you simply say, I think I've made a mistake. In fact, I'm sure I've made a mistake. I think it's probably best if we both save ourselves some time and we just call it right here and no hard feelings. Because I'm not looking for somebody who takes an act of, don't say chivalry, that's a red flag. I'm not really interested in dating anybody who is going to get upset when somebody makes a routine gesture of respect. Out. That'll get their attention. So you're in control of this thing, and you. Kimberly Weaver says, my husband made me Hot Pockets in his apartment for our first date, LOL. I bet you anything that he made the sale by the end of the night. Because that's a great example. It's a real life example. That's a guy who knows where his towel is. That's a guy who is basically saying, this is what I want to do, and if you want to do it with me, I'd love to have you there. That's a frickin' winner. So it doesn't have to be expensive. Just be, the word I'm looking for is self-contained. You need to be self-contained. You don't have to act like you're rich. You don't have to act like you're handsome. You don't have to act like you're successful. You don't have to act like anything. You are you. You're comfortable being you. You do the things that you do. If she doesn't like it, then that's fine. That's fine. Okay? You just want to be centered, and you want to tell yourself, I'm going into this with my dignity intact, and I'm coming out of it with my dignity intact, because if you walk away from a date, and even if you get shot down, you will never be cringe, and you will never lose as long as you maintain your dignity. If it turns out that, it just doesn't work. You say, well, I understand. I remember when I was in my my bachelor dating salad days. I remember telling myself, I remember like briefing myself, almost like training myself. This is how you walk out with your dignity. I remember training myself to be ready for this, even if I think that the date's like going really, really well, and you get anything along the lines of, I just don't think this is really working for me. Your immediate response should be, I completely agree. I just didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to be rude, but I get the exact same feeling. Yeah, there's just, who knows what makes these things work. I couldn't agree more. I've had a lovely time with you, and I wish you the very best. And you're out. They will lose their minds over that. They will lose their minds. Reframing says, never praise them for their beauty. The most you should say is, oh, you look nice. I started the conversation with this. You look lovely tonight. Later in the evening, if it's going away, say, you have very interesting eyes. You know that? Interesting eyes. The female mind will say, not beautiful eyes. And now you're winning, man. You're winning. You have really interesting eyes. Say it kindly. Make it clear it's a compliment. But don't ever give her anything that she's not only expecting, but actually almost demanding. Because these girls get gassed up so much that if you don't do it, you are automatically out of the friend zone if you don't gas them up. You may not get to be where you want to be, but you are not there if you don't gas them up. There's an awful lot to be said for starter girlfriends too, man. I was mentioning this earlier. So many of the people that I was that were interested in me, I wasn't interested in because I had my sights on homecoming queen kind of thing, and that was a gigantic mistake. You will gain experience, and you don't have to be cruel to somebody, and you may really surprise yourself and realize, how about that, And you can't really complain about, let me rephrase this completely. There are plenty of women out there who are not needing to be, have a fortune spent on them, and who really just like a little kindness and some courtesy. Watch, if you really want to get this, man, go watch a channel called HOMATH, HOE_MATH. He's got the whole thing charted out. But what's happened is social media and women's, this is so cool, women's strategies, you really can't believe how nefarious they can be. Women's strategies are for the 8s and 9s and 10s to tell the mids and the lowers that they're all 8s and 9s and 10s. The strategy of the attractive women is to tell the middle attractive and the unattractive women that they're all 10s. Why? Because that will make them automatically delusional, and the 8s and 9s and 10s feel pretty much, like they're doing it. I'll get all this organized because I really did give this a lot of thought. But one of the things that I hear a lot about women is, from women is that the men are really indecisive. Don't ask a girl where she wants to go. Look, I don't get that answer from my wife. I've been married almost 10 years now. I don't say, where do you want to go? I say, I want to go to Casablanca, I want to go to Little Tony's, I want to go to Vibrato, I want to do this. And this is the subtle signs that you're in control of this. And Last Independent Thinker says, the female dating strategy can be summarized as follows: don't call me, I'll call you, and they will call or pursue you if they want you. This is really it, guys. Their use Yes, Lady Hawk says, I made reservations at a little place I know of. That's even better. That's even better. Instead of saying, do you want to go to Olive Garden or something, it's like, instead of saying, I know this place called Blue Dog, you say, I've made reservations at this place called Blue Dog. I really think you'll like it. I love it. I think it's cool. This is what they want. They're looking for somebody who's got their shit together. They're looking for somebody who's got their act together, and they instantly disqualify anybody who feels like they need them. You've got to just go through this whole thing like it doesn't matter. I'm gonna go out and have a good time, and if they want to have a good time too, if great. If not, that's fine. I'm not changing who I am. I'm not changing how I act. I'm not changing any of that stuff. Now, Christopher November 163 says, I only date men who are at least 6 foot and net at least $300,000 a year. Christopher, if you're not 6 feet and don't net $300,000 a year, there's nothing you can do about that. This whole idea that you've got to change, you got to maximize your height or your face or your money. No, that person is going to die alone. I'm telling you, she is going to die alone, and you don't need any contact with somebody who says, these are my requirements. If you run into anybody who says, these are my requirements, get out, run for your lives. Those people will never be happy. They're just a bunch of 304s. They're going to be miserable for the rest of their lives. What you need is you need to be the kind of thing that it's like a cat. You want to be somebody that they want to be around. And here's a thing I wish I'd understood, because I've gotten friend zoned a lot. I really wish that it had the sense when I was in the friend zone in a number of these cases. I wish I'd had the knowledge to say to this person I was super interested in, hey, can I, maybe I come over and talk to you about something? Yeah, okay, because good-looking women keep guys in the friend zone because that's what they do with their nights off. You come over, you flatter them, and give them attention. What's not to like about that? I really wish I'd had the smarts to once go over there and just say, hey, I really need some advice on something. I've been seeing this girl I really, really like, and I think she really likes me, and since we're such close friends, I was just wondering if you could just basically just sort of help me maximize, my appeal, because I really, really like this girl a lot. Oh man, I really wish I'd done that. That would have been just lightning. Would have been lightning. Quiba says, Bill, men today will move on to sex, robot, wafus. As soon as Elon brings them online, they have children with the artificial womb. Well, Quiba, I genuinely feel sorry that you feel that way. I really do. And I know a lot of people, young people, feel that way. Skyfair Banks says, dating a lot of men at the same time didn't work for me. Not if they find out they're one of 10, LOL. No. If you find out that you're on a roster, buddy, if you actually find that out, I would just tell you what my response would be. And Skyfair Banks can tell you whether this would work or not. If I found out that I was on a roster, I think what I would say is something to the effect of, Sky, I really have a really good time, going out with you. I like you a lot, and I really, I just enjoy your time. But I don't do rosters. So if you're interested in pursuing this, great. That would make me very happy. If you're interested in maintaining a field of guys, I'm not going to be one of them. So just let me know what you want to do. And that's it. You're not going there. They can't see. That's the thing, man. Women are just so much better at psychology and so much better at relationships and interpersonal relations than men are. We're just like we're like babes in the wood. When it comes to relationships dynamics, we are exactly the same as women are if you put them on an island. They don't have the faintest idea what to do, and we don't either. So you just got to be sure about true north. You got to have a compass. My compass is, I am not a second. I'm not taking second place. I'm not. Sky says that's very good. See, you're not being a dick. Oh, I guess I'm just another guy for you. I guess I'm just your Tuesday night. No, no. How long has she known you, by the way? You know, you're getting all huffy like you've been married for 20 years. You know, she's seeing a lot of guys, and you're one of them. Okay. Once you've gone out on 2 dates that have been good dates, and you find out, you don't ask, but if you find out that there's a bunch of other people going on for whatever reason, you know, then it's like, I'm just not going to do that. All right? I like you too much and I like me too much. I'm not doing it. So decide which one of your roster is the most important one. If it's me, great. Let's move on. If it's not, I hope you find somebody who will make you put the roster away. They don't want the roster. They don't. They want the relationship. Women need relationships more than men do, a lot more. And the problem is that men don't know how to. Young men have been so brutalized and so traumatized and beaten up and all of this stuff that they don't understand anymore what it is that you're really offering. You are offering security. You're offering emotional stability. You're offering protection. You're not a money machine. You're not an ATM, especially when you're young. If you get the feeling that they're just trying to milk you for cash, you can just say, I'm sure you can find somebody much, much wealthier than me. Good luck. And thank you for your time. And you walk out of there with your dignity intact. There's no cringe. There's no nothing. You walk out of there. You walked out. She didn't say go away. You walked. Fuentes. Eric says, I like that Bill makes the girl feel good about herself. Like the guy just went to her for insight because she thinks she's wise. Because he thinks she's wise. If you go to a girl and you're in her friend zone and you ask her for advice on what you do about a girl you're romantically interested in, you have just raised your value by 20 points because you're no longer a simp who can't get a girl. Now you are actually being a friend. She said she wants a friend. I like to have male friends. Now you're treating her as a friend. I need some relationship advice because I need, like, could you give me an idea like what looks good on me so I know what to wear? It's not about her anymore. And when it's not about her, pal, it's a different game. Different game. So just remember that. The thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you go out of there every time knowing more about her than she knows about you. If you could keep that up for 3 or 4 dates, I think you're pretty much home free. That's mission number 1. When this thing is over, you got to know much more about her than she knows about you, because that way you can go home in confidence and she will go home losing her mind, wondering why the course of the whole evening went by and all she knows about you is that you really love making Lego Death Stars. That's it. That's probably been said already, but I always felt like I needed to bridle my infatuation to the point where it was not noticeable. Infatuation, women can smell infatuation a mile away, and they feed on it, and they don't have the common sense of decency and honor sometimes. Many of them do. Many of them say not interested. If they say not interested, they're not interested. By the way, if they say not interested and you say, I completely understand, I hope you have a happy life, and you walk away, she may not have been interested before, and she may not be interested now, but that's the only chance you've got that she might be interested. If you come back after that, it's over, and you deserve everything you get. Now, I'll end with this and we'll get to the questions. As I got better at this, and the reason I'm telling you this story is because it's a fabulous line, and it takes a certain amount of experience to pull it off. But the reason I want to tell you this story is because it proved my theory. So I was seeing somebody was in a couple of movies as kind of the ingenue back in the late '90s, early 2000s, and she had dated some I can't really say who she dated, but it's the top guy, the number one guy, and I knew this, and so we were sitting at this restaurant, and I mean the guy. Nope, it's not the Prince Charming and the Horseshoe Line. Ref Ryan, I'm just going to say you're 50% right. So I said, at the end of the date, it was going really, really well, and this is what I said at the end of the date, and I said, now watch and learn, friends. I said, hey, just before we go, I just want to tell you, it's just been. I got to remember exactly because you got to put this exactly right. I said, I just really feel like I had to say that having a chance to sit here for an hour and a half and just sit and talk to somebody, this good looking, this sexy, this hot, this attractive, and I watched as I laid those three, just sitting, I watched her face just fall. Face just fell because she was thinking, oh God, he's, it was going really well. Now he's going to tell me, you're so beautiful, you're so this and that. So that's exactly what I was laying on. I just slathered it on. Just wanted to say, just sitting here for a couple hours with somebody, this good looking and this beautiful and this famous, it's just must have been a real thrill for you, and I don't want you to feel self-conscious about it, in the future. And the second that line came out of my mouth, I watched carefully because I could see her face just drop when I was going to lather on the here comes the puppy dog thing, and that little reversal at the end, and she could see that I wasn't serious, but I was playing that card, and man, that's just the chef's kiss at the end. Just being here with somebody this good looking and this gorgeous, frankly, and famous and sexy. I just wanted to say it must have been a real thrill for you. And that, my friends, is the perfect close, because you have expressed confidence without bragging. You have shown her that you know what she's expecting, and you're not going to give it to her, and you are at the same time, you are not taking yourself seriously. You're both in on the joke. You're in on the. Did she laugh? Yes, she laughed. Yes, she laughed, and it was, and I didn't. She just laughed, and I just smiled. She knew I was joking, but I wasn't joking. It was a perfect line. It was a perfect line, because we both knew exactly what was going on. She knew that I was giving her the kiss of death, and I flipped it, and it was like, it's a masterpiece. It was a masterpiece. And if you could make a girl laugh, guys, that's most of the way there. But you don't do that by telling jokes, and you don't do that by being mean. What's the thing I saw? Oh, I saw on Sorrow TV. Maybe what we'll do is I'll get a transcript of some of these things, and I'll give you the way to play it. But one of this one I'll never forget. It was in r/Nice Guys, and this girl had written, honestly, I think guacamole is better than sex. And the response from this guy was, Well, obviously, you haven't had sex with a real man, because if you'd had sex with a real man like myself, who's also a gentleman, you'd never say anything like that. If you'd been in the company of a gentleman like myself who knows how to treat a lady, the sex you would have had would have been just blah 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 blah. What she said was, "I think I like guacamole better than sex," and my response instantly would have been, "Want to go out for some guacamole?" That's all I would have said. That's it. I wouldn't. I would have just dropped that line there and left it. You're not. You're not. It's judo, man. It's judo. Yes, I want to go out. Like his always says, want to go out for guacamole? Yes, I would. Well, since you're the guacamole expert, uh, where's your favorite guacamole and how's Thursday? It's it's just it's perfect. It's perfect. And you leave it. You don't follow it. You want to go for the guacamole. They can't say no to that, man. They can't. And and all of these things are just a question of like, don't be mean. Women don't like nice guys because nice guys are puppy dogs. Women aren't looking for nice guys. Women are looking for good men. They're not looking for a-holes. If she's addicted to the bad boys, then she's got daddy issues and she is going to make your life a living hell. Don't even go there. But that doesn't mean just because nice guys finish last doesn't mean that good men finish last. Nice guys are not good men. Nice guys are insecure dweebs, and most of the time those nice guys are really, really nasty. Really nasty. So don't ever go down that nice guy road. Ever. Just be a good man. Good man doesn't need the approval. Good man doesn't need the validation. A good man is confident enough to make a concrete, specific offer that is crystal clear. It's on the table. It's not a, hey, I don't know if you're up to, it's just, hey, want to do this? No, thank you, I have a boyfriend. Well, I wish you the very best, and you're out of there. You maintain your dignity, and I'm telling you, if you say that and you're gone and you never hit them again, maybe she didn't have a boyfriend, she probably did. But at that age, those things don't last a long time. And if you went out of there like a champ, then she might contact you. Bill, we also need to make sure that Jake and Lisa go on a date night sometime and display these skills. Yes. The Jake and Lisa thing is, I've been thinking an awful lot about that dynamic because because Jake knows in his heart, I'll tell you this, I've given this a lot of thought. Jake knows in his heart that Lisa is way above his level. Lisa is pretty. She's not knockout gorgeous. She's pretty, but she's very well cultured, and she's comes from a rich family. And Jake is just a working guy, and he understands that he cannot play the social game. Jake is himself. Jake is Jake, and Jake is comfortable being Jake, and that's why she loves him. She loves him because he's not a pretty boy. He's not a player. He doesn't have great pickup lines. He doesn't do any of that stuff. I want to talk to Gummins because these are the guys I need to talk to. Bill, I stand by my point that it's great advice, but doesn't apply to guys like me. I'm old and wise enough to know that I have no business whatsoever even trying to talk to the caliber of women you're talking about. If you notice, Quibo, I didn't really mention the caliber of women except for that one particular case. I'm just talking about finding. I'm just talking about finding somebody to go out with. So what home math basically did was say, look, here are the tens. male and female. Here are the 10s, the 9s, 8s, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And he said in the olden days, we all grew up together and we had a narrow little social circle. So generally speaking, the 6s would more or less pair off with the 6s, and the 3s would pair off with the 3s, and the 8s would pair off with the 8s. But in the social media world, because of women's psychology, all of the women are shooting for the 9s and the 10s, and they're not even looking at guys below an 8. So what you have to do is you have to get out of the Homath has it exactly right. He's got this line that he puts up on his charts with an arrow, and he says anything below this are not people. To a lot of these women, if you're not an 8 or above, you're not people. And he's right. He's right. But your job is to let's say you're a 5 or a 3 or a 4. Your job is to do something that is so, this is not a grand gesture and it's not an act. You have to possess a quality that is so rare that it will get the attention of somebody like that. And what's rare is to not do what she's expecting, and to do what she's not expecting, and not to be so a lot of young guys hear this and they say, she's expecting you to be nice, so the way you succeed is by being a dick to her. No, that's you don't have that. I never did. You're not a motorcycle bad guy, and it's pointless to try to be that. You just come off like bitter. No, it's like what they're looking for is confidence. But not Andrew Tate confidence. I don't think Andrew Tate is a confident guy at all, and I know Clavicular isn't, because they're both doing things that self-confident people don't do. I'll give you an example of this. It's not on the dating scene, but it's the exact same phenomenon. Roxanne says, a funny guy's my favorite guy, the hottest. I love intelligent men, I guess. My husband makes me laugh every day, thank God. Good for you, Roxanne. You sound like a terrific way to, you sound like he's really got you going. And you say he's an intelligent man, but I'd be willing to bet you a pretty significant amount of money that at no point in your dating life did your husband sit down with you and very seriously say, I've got an IQ of 146. It's certified by Mensa. I'm actually one of the smartest people you've ever met. Because smart people don't do that. Smart people don't do that. Smart people don't have to tell everybody how smart they are. Smart people don't. I don't have to do it. Deporter, and she says, if you're a 6, act like an 8 with confidence, with some humility, and you will do just fine. Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. That humility comes from that sense of I am on the track in my life that I want to be on, and if that track is the nerdiest thing in the world, I'm telling you, you may not believe me, Gummins and the rest of you, but if you are confidently on the track to do something that is incredibly nerdy, you have got a much better chance with women than if you are pretending to be on a track that is the coolest thing in the world. You just have to have a plan. We're talking about, guys not being able to afford these nice restaurants. So you go and you make reservations at Blue Dog or whatever. And when it comes time to talk about yourself, you talk about the things that you're interested in, and you don't talk too much, frankly. That's the worst thing you can do. What are you interested in? I really like Legos. Legos? Yeah, I know. How did this conversation start tonight, right? Bill, what's your go-to drink? It's a lemon drop martini. And so I've ordered a lemon drop martini on first dates before, and when the waiter asked me, what's your favorite drink, I say, a lemon drop martini. And they say, do you want sugar around the rim? I said, yeah, I sure do. Extra sugar, and if you got a Hello Kitty glass, that'd be great. And now you're making fun of the fact. You're making fun of the fact that you're doing something nerdy, but you're doing it anyway because you don't give a damn what she thinks about you. You're not ordering the drink to impress her. You're ordering the drink because this is what you like, and you have turned. If you add that Hello Kitty line, you have turned that initial negative into a positive. Yeah. I don't know. What you're basically saying is, yeah, it's a gay drink. I understand that. I like it. And I'm not changing. I'm not going to pretend that I don't. I do. That's what I want to drink. Any other questions? Government says, not meant to be an insult. She lowered her expectations to settle for me. Well, Gummins, I'll tell you, I think she probably sees things in you that you maybe don't see in yourself, and I'm guilty of this myself. It's been a lifelong pattern for me, and I've still got it. But the guy who's a producer for Mike Rowe's show just got married, and he's a show business guy, you know, and he married a woman who is a maintenance expert on what is it, the T7? Is that the new trainer that I love so much? I could have knocked me down with a feather. I mean, really. But all men marry up. All men marry up, and this goes back to the Jake thing. Jake is 100% convinced he's married up, but Jake is not worried about losing Lisa because Jake knows that he gives Lisa not only what she wants but what she needs. Jake is not to be messed with, and Lisa, who's been surrounded by these rich, super handsome, rich moneyed guys who move through a cocktail party like all of this, and she has never once felt safe in her life until she was standing next to this guy, because this guy made it pretty clear from the first date he's not going to be your puppy dog. He's not going to let you tell him. He's not going to let you push him around, but he is going to take a bullet for you. And this can be done very, very, very simply. Natasha, among the many, look, I'm a passport bro myself, man. I did a lot of dating in LA, and most of the women here are just batshit crazy. And the thing I liked most about Natasha was how feminine she was and all of this. But right early, and I mean real early, well before we got married, she came, visited for 10 days in August in 2016, and she came to stay in September. And I think we had probably been like 4 or 5 days or something, and she started using a bit of a, you know, like a little bit of a nagging tone, you know, just a little edge on there, kind of like, I just told you I wanted to, and there was just a sharpness there, and I just looked at her and said, easy, easy, and she looked at me like, and she was like, I'm sorry, that was the end of it. I understand. It wasn't a question of being mad. She's been mad at me plenty of times. We have had shouting matches like any other couple a couple times, but this was different. This was kind of a. I don't think she was intentionally testing me, but it was just kind of her previous boyfriends had been, you know, pretty weak guys, and I was just basically making it clear I'm not that guy. That's just not going to happen here. So, you know, I'm happy to talk about things, but I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be told what to do. Not by you or by anybody else. And that's all they want, man. That's all they want. And they will test you on this, and you just have to just know where to draw that line. Anyway, I would like to develop this further because I think it's really important. Mike says women like confidence but not rudeness, and that confidence means that the man is not weak. Exactly. You're not rude. You're not an a-hole. Cummins says you know how lucky you are to find a good woman who actually respects men. Well, she respects me. She didn't much respect the guy she was seeing before she met me. And the reason she respects me is not because of the things that I've accomplished. She respects me um, because I don't tolerate disrespect, and it's certainly run the other way too. You know, there are times when I just get really like I want that, and she's like, hey, you know, essentially saying kind of like, who do you think you're talking to? Honey, I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry about that. That was my mistake. I won't do that again. I'll try not to. I will do it again, but I won't do it on purpose. And this is how it works, man. And I look at these people who are saying, I'm waiting for the right person. I'm waiting for the right one. I'm waiting for the right one. You know, I I I asked Natasha to marry me after 9 days together. 9 straight days. That's it. No one date and then a break for a week to see how things go. It was 9 days. We had spent a lot of time talking before she came here, but that was the condition. And she was leaving on the 11th day, and 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 she had picked up and come across the world to spend 11 days with me. And by the 9th day, I knew this is what I wanted, and it wasn't fair to her to have her go home and then say, well, let's try this again in a couple months. It's like, no, no, this is what I want. And so I asked her to marry me. And when I bought the ring, and it wasn't a big ring, when I went to the jewelry store, we were in a mall, and I said, I just got to pick up some things. So I kind of went off by myself, went up to this jewelry store. I'd looked at this before she got here. I had this ring picked out. So I went up there. I hadn't proposed yet, obviously, because I didn't have the ring. But I bought the ring, and the person behind the counter, this woman behind the counter, said, "Okay, well, here you go," and put it in a nice little box. And she says, "And we've got a 30-day return policy in case she says no." And I said, "No, she's not going to say no. If you don't know the answer to the 'will you marry me' question, you should never ask that question." This is something I've always been absolutely flabbergasted about. You never, ever, ever ask a woman to marry you unless you are 100% certain that that's going to be a yes. If you have any doubt at all about this, it's either not time yet, or or it's not working the way it's not. That just can't. Wasn't even thinking about. Oh, she's not going to say no. No way she's going to say no. So anyway, there you go. The Porter Chief says, I asked my wife to marry me on our first date. Don't know what the hell I was thinking, and she said yes. 29 years later, still together. Man, stories like that, Deporter, make me just absolutely happy. You're not the first person who's been down that road, but that's you're a guy who knows what he likes, and you probably had enough experience to know what you don't like, and there you go. Rough Ryan says, I asked my wife of 11 years to marry me while rappelling off a 100-foot cliff in front of a huge banner that said marry me. Yeah. I see these guys getting turned down. You know, they drop to a knee and they present this ring, and the girl says no, and I think, man, I feel so sorry for this guy, but at the same time, you can see on the woman's face that, you know, that she's really crushed by having to say no to this guy. And that's like, the guy should have been not so dense. Anyway, Michael Mike says, learn how to ask good questions. Yes, when you are on that date, and I'm wrapping this up, if she asks you about what you like, you tell her. You tell her the truth. Don't tell her what you think she wants to hear. Telling her the truth about something that you're passionate about, even if it's really odd, is much better play than, I am interested in becoming a financial tycoon, and I'm going to have an empire of cars, and if that's what you want, that's fine, but if it's not, it'll bomb. But what was it? Come on. I forget what it was. Bullet dodged. If a woman says no, you are the luckiest man alive, that she didn't lie and say yes. Anyway, I think I've pretty much run this into the ground, but you get the idea. I'll tighten up these ideas and put together a little package. But if you're watching this and you're one of those guys, I'm telling you, you can avoid something that I didn't have to deal with. By the way, it's not like things have gotten completely worse. It's true that when we were dating, we were dating age, in our teens and 20s, especially. We did have to take that walk, in a bar or across a club and ask somebody if they want to dance, and most of the time they'd say no, and you had to walk your way back. But you have to learn how to do that without a loss of dignity. If I had that to do again, I think if I were to do that again, I were to walk across the room and ask somebody if she wanted to dance, and she said no, I would just look at her for a second and just kind of think, oh, okay, have a good evening, and I would just kind of act like a little bit surprised, just a tiny little bit surprised, but I sure wouldn't act like F you, or I sure wouldn't. I knew she wouldn't. So, really, kind of. Okay, thanks. And I would just smile my way back. Anyway, that's it. All right, let's get to some questions here. Reference says, another pro tip: find women in church or through friends and family, and quit trying to pick girls up at the bar or club for peaks. Yes, and find somebody nice. There's so many nice girls out there. They're just waiting for a good man to just come up and have a plan. That's it. Have a plan. Have a plan at all times. Have a plan. It's irresistible because women can't make up their mind about anything anyway, and the last thing they want is to date another woman. Where do you want to go? Do you want to do this? I don't know. I don't know if you want to do this or not, but do you want to? No, I'm doing this. Let's go. What do you want to go? Let's go. Have a plan. I've got a plan. Stick with the plan. If it's a seafood place that says, oh, I just, I'm sorry, I just like really don't like seafood. Okay. What do you like? Well, I really like a steakhouse. Got you covered. How about Joey's or Vibrato? If you got the bucks, I wouldn't lead with an expensive date. I think it's a mistake. Eric Blake says, don't be a dick and don't be a queer. Yeah, that'll pretty much cover you. One thing I always learned, Trunkality Base says, one thing I always learned from the World War II generation, always continue to call her your bride. So many older folks that I knew did this, and it makes perfect sense. It's a short leap from wife to bitchy wife, where bitchy bride is like saying dry water. It just can't be. Yeah, that's true. They generations and my generation, the more I hear about, I've knocked this before, I couldn't remember the name of it, but the more I hear about Generation Jones, the more I realize, no, that is exactly who I am. There's a lot about the baby boomers that I don't like, and that, not even that I don't like, that just doesn't feel like me. And then Gen X came after me, but that Generation Jones thing, born, like 55 to 65, right in there, that's my cohort. So it's not really a thing, but anyway, yeah. Anyway, but we didn't have any social media at all in our dating lives. And I remember what I was going to say. We had to take the walk. It's much easier to approach somebody through a text than it is to their face, which is why I would recommend that you don't do it through a text. But this is where I'm willing to admit that that I might be a little behind the times on this. I know that people don't like getting called unless you text them in advance, and I understand that. But I'll just tell you this: if you thought things were easier back in those days, if you wanted to ask a girl out in high school, you had to get on your family's phone and go in a room someplace where nobody could hear you, and then you would call her number, and you would absolutely 100% of the time end up speaking to either her mom or dad and say, hi, is Betty there? I never dated anybody named Betty. I'm just trying to protect the innocent. and they'll say, yes, can I ask who's calling, please? It's Bill Little. And then there's like a pause, and you can just hear in the background, the girls going, no, 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 I'm dead. Tell him I'm dead. I'm dead. Anyway, get there. Let's get some questions out of the way here. Why don't we? One thing I did notice, of course, he's the subreddit is selecting nice guys is selecting the worst of these, but it really is true that a lot of these guys say, "I'm a nice guy." You never give nice guys a change. How come you never try? How come these a-holes get all the women, and nice guys like me never get a chance? Females are all the same. It's like, you're not such a nice guy, dude. You're really kind of passive aggressively your way into this situation, and it's not a good plan. Get a cat. I'm telling you. Get a cat. You get a cat to love you, you're golden. Much harder to get a cat to love you than it is to get just a decent woman. So, let's see what we got here. Brian Tortelli says, when you were growing up, would you call a pretty girl a Betty? No, I never used the word Betty. I just used that because I didn't want to use like the real first name. But I do look back on a lot of, like I said many times, I look back on the people who I know were interested in me, and I can't believe that I was too stupid in both ways. Number one, I probably would have had a wonderful time with them. And number two, even if I didn't, I would learn the basics, the basics. Neil Evans says, I'm a millennial and had to do the phone call thing for 8th grade social. Yes, dude. Prom was handled by very early internet like AOL Messenger. When I asked somebody to the prom and she said no, by the way, I think I pantomimed the whole thing out. I was so nervous. It was just, well, it was cringe is what it was. I should have just asked. And I didn't go to my prom. So I'm glad I found Natasha, because otherwise I'd probably be hanging around trying to find a prom date now, and that'd be a little awkward, although I'm pretty sure I can pull it off. We'll see. Ian Nolan is curating our question for tonight. So we got an Ian Nolan, we got a Capital G Geek, Steve Young, Quebo Artist again, Eric Blake, Short Night. Sweet. All right, fantastic. Yeah, if I had known then what I know now, I would have been just unstoppable. Ho math, guys. Ho math. Really got it. All right, Ian Nolan. Bill, I realized short notice that no one had assembled a politics thread, so here you go. Thank you, Ian. That's nice of you. Let's get into some of the Iran war stuff, specifically the lead up to the war. The Trump administration was noticeably silent on selling this war to the American people in the run up to it, kind of just relying on Iran hawks to say why we should do so without officially validating what the motivating factor was. And then there's the problematic comments from Rubio and a few others saying that the why now reason was essentially that Israel forced our hand. Yeah. I personally think the reasons for the war are probably the strategic realignment that this forces China into, which is a reason the administration could never state out loud. Yeah, I guess, probably. It makes sense, but I sure don't like that the administration just seems to be ignoring and dismissing the American people. And while I think Israel is a pretty good ally, I don't like that they seem to be pulling us around by the nose here, both in terms of timing the conflict and in repeatedly bombing everyone we're trying to negotiate with. Seems like the end goals between Israel and us differ. I'm curious if you differ in my opinion in any of the above. No, I pretty much agree with you on just about everything there. And I think look, let me just sort of break this down and tell you what I would have done differently. Um, Especially lately, especially since Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and the whole rise of Nick Fuentes and the whole, you know, who's an agent of Israel and Netanyahu and the Gaza and all of this other stuff. Uh, it is, I am 100% behind this operation with a bunch of caveats that I'm about to go into in terms of how it's being handled. But I think 100% yes, it was necessary, and I think that this really was a case of killing two birds with one stone. I think that we had and continue to have a severely we have a uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Iran is an imminent and potent threat. Are those the two words? There's a quadrant. Is it imminent or is it something we can relax on? Is it potent or is it something we don't really need to worry about? In any event, yes, they're both. And I think that Israel and the United States have we are both we both have the same common interests here with regard to Iran. Israel has a legitimate reason to knock that regime off, and so do we. And the problem with Iran getting nuclear weapons is Iran is a rogue nation, and a rogue nation with nuclear weapons has enormous leverage over the entire world. They can hold the world hostage because they just don't give a damn. You cannot. We don't. There's no discussions on the board, although I have to say, I have started to hear them. But prior to 2-3 years ago, there was no discussion about whether or not we needed to launch strikes against France because France has nuclear capabilities. France is sometimes our ally, sometimes not. We certainly don't feel like particularly aligned with France. However, we understand that France is a rational actor. It's a democracy. Same with Great Britain and so on. Although, like I said a moment ago, we really are starting to approach the point now where we have to start asking ourselves if the Europeans don't stop the Islamization of their countries at some point in the future, and we're seeing this with Britain, with Starmer. At some point, we really need to ask ourselves: is this in fact still an ally, or now are we in a nominal alliance with what is essentially an Islamic state with nuclear weapons? So yes, I think absolutely they needed to go, and I like it. So here's my hierarchy of judgments on these issues, on the issue of foreign wars and strikes and so on. My principal concern, it's not my only concern, but it is by far my principal concern, 90% of my concern, maybe more, is what is good for the United States of America. What is in our national interests in terms of advancing ourselves and protecting ourselves. And I think that Iran clearly falls into that category. I don't think we should go to war for an ally. I think we should go to war if an ally is attacked. But something like this, if I was president of the United States, no amount of influence that Israel or any other state could put on me to do something like this if I didn't think it was in America's interest. And that's why I don't really buy the Israel is leading us around by the nose thing, because it is in both of our interests. And to say that, well, Israel was pushing on the timing, Israel's got, I think, certainly the best intelligence service as far as the Middle East is concerned anyway. And if Israel is saying they're getting very, very close, and I'm the president of the United States, I think I would take that advice, because I think they're this is what they're best in the world at. But you could never get me to do something for that Israel wanted me to do if I didn't think it was, even if it was neutral. I wouldn't do it if it hurt America. I wouldn't do it if it had no difference to America. But in this case, it is in our interest, and has been. Lady Hawk says Trump has been saying that since the 1980s that Iran had to be taken out. So let's talk about some of the things I would have done differently. Here's the first thing I would have done differently. Immediately, I would have said, and I would never, ever have let a press conference go by without this. I would have said, we are not starting a war with Iran. We are ending a war with Iran. We are ending a war that they started against us in 1979, and they have been fighting that war against us to the absolute maximum of their capabilities. And as the President of the United States, I cannot be dependent on their intentions, because their intentions can change. I have to look at their capability, and if they are on the nuclear capability threshold, it is in the interest of the United States of America to not allow a nation that has been at war with us for 40 years to have those kind of weapons. And I'm not ashamed to say so. So that's the first thing I would have said. Second thing I would have said, so let me make clear what our objectives are in this war with Iran. Our objectives are the unconditional surrender of the Iranian Islamic regime, period. Unconditional surrender of the Islamic regime, which has hijacked the nation of Iran. It is essentially a minority of fanatical Arabs that have taken over a Persian culture and held them hostage for the last 40 years, the same way they held our hostages in 1979. Our hostages came home. The Iranian people have been hostages since 1979. I'm not doing this to liberate the Iranian people. That's nation building. Liberating the Iranian people is the job of the Iranians. But it is in our interest to get rid of this regime and get rid of their capabilities. So our objectives are not the destruction of their nuclear program. Although it's that, our objectives are not just them easing up on their people. Although it's that, our objectives are the unconditional surrender of the Islamic regime that has hijacked the country of Iran and murdered and tortured not only millions of their own people, but have been responsible for most of the mischief around the world. Without Iran, there's no Hamas. Without Iran, there's no Hezbollah. Without Iran, there's no Houthis. Without Iran, there's no IEDs blowing up our brave soldiers in Iraq and all the rest of it. I am tired of this country pretending that they are not at war with us. Just because we're not at war with them doesn't mean they're not at war with us. I'm not starting this war. I'm ending it. And it will end when they surrender unconditionally, and not until then. If that takes 6 weeks, great. If it takes 6 months, that's not as good. If it takes 6 years, that's even worse. But that's what we're in it for, and we're not stopping until we do that. Now, if you say that, you have told the Iranian leadership and all of their military commanders that it's not a question of outlasting our willpower. When Trump says we expect this to be over in 4 to 6 weeks, the first thing these people hear is, well, if we can go 8 weeks, then there's going to start being heat from the useful idiots on the left. And the longer it goes past 6 weeks, the more heat there's going to be. So all we have to do is just hunker down and wait them out, because America does not have the patience or the willpower to stick around, even in a fight where, and I don't mean, believe me, no one takes a position in front of me in terms of my respect and admiration for people in the military, and for the people that we've lost in this conflict is no different than them being lost on Iwo Jima. But with that said, and with the respect that's due to these families and their loss, we have essentially eliminated an entire nation's military capabilities with casualties that are so low that they're miraculous. They're simply unbelievable. It is essentially, in terms of the scale of the operation, it is about as close to zero casualties as you can get in the real world. Again, with the highest level of respect and sympathy for the people who have died for this country with the rest. But even in a case of us doing things this well, we will continue to do it until we have achieved our war objectives. I am not going to tell the Iranian people who they are going to have as their leader. That's not my job. But I will tell the Iranian people who they cannot have as their leader. And that's the way it is. Some people don't like that. I understand. But we didn't get to be the most powerful nation in the history of the world by being on the wrong side of morality. And I don't want to hear about the wrong side of history. History goes the way that history goes. History does not have volition. There's such a thing as being on the wrong side of history. We are going to continue this until we get unconditional surrender of the Islamic regime, at which point the Iranian people, under our supervision, will select what kind of government they want. And that is entirely up to them. But what we will not allow is for them to replace the regime that we've overthrown in our national interest with another regime that we're going to have to overthrow in 5 or 10 years. So there we go. Oh, what do you know? Craigie says, damn, what I missed. It was a great show so far. Just got back from marching in our local Anzac Day parade for vets. Happy Anzac Day. Good on you, Aussies. Anzac Day is an American thing, man. It's just a tremendous thing. Lady Jamie says, has anyone asked Bill what he thinks about the phrase some people have started to use American Empire? Yes, I'd be happy to talk about American Empire. The definition of an empire is a group of countries that are ruled by another country. They are not sovereign nations. They are under the control of the imperial power. The imperial power dictates to them how their country will be run. And we have not done that anywhere in the world ever. We have never said that you will do what we tell you to do. We are, by definition, not an empire. And by the way, the entire purpose of an empire, the reason that you have an empire, is that you believe that by conquering or at least coercing other nations to do your will, that you will benefit. The empire, the British Empire, existed for the benefit of Britain. The Spanish Empire existed for the benefit of Spain. The Roman Empire existed for the benefit of Rome. All of the resources around the world came into the imperial center. But if you look at the United States, what you'll find is all of these nations that are our allies don't pay us tribute. We pay them. The money flowing to the bases that we have, and take Djibouti, for example. We have a significant base. CENTCOM has a significant base in Djibouti. Do you actually think that we have a base in Djibouti so that we can go and extract resources and labor and take the hard work of the people of Djibouti to enrich ourselves? The gross national product of Djibouti, if we went into Djibouti and took every single thing that Djibouti had, we took everything that Djibouti had, that would run our government for about 3 hours. It just doesn't make any sense. We're not only not an empire, we are an anti-empire. Our largesse and our money and all of the stuff flows outward. It's good for us and it's good for them. And they can ask us to leave at any time, and we will go. They asked us to leave in the Philippines. They asked us to leave I think that the two single most potent and capable installations in the far western Pacific were Subic Bay Naval Base and Clark Air Force Base, both in the Philippines. And when the Philippines went through a wave of anti-Americanism that we happen to feel was ginned up by their leadership, but that's not our business. When they said, we don't want you here anymore, we said, okay. And we didn't just leave, and we didn't do what other empires would have done, which is we would have taken those bases with us. By that, I simply mean we would have bulldozed them into the ground, gotten whatever gear we could have gotten out of there, destroyed the runways, destroyed the ports. We built them, You want them back? Here you go. You can have them back the way we got them. But no. And it turned out that Subic Bay became, I think, a Russian base. Lady Hawk says, I thought they gave up Clark after the volcano damage. I'm not naive enough or foolish enough to say that that wasn't a part of the calculation. But nevertheless, if they ask us to go, we go. And as far as the whole war for oil thing goes, if you think we're an empire that conquers other nations for oil, I would refer you back to 1991 when Saddam Hussein in Iraq invaded Kuwait, which was an ally and which also was a key part of the world's oil supply. It's foolish to pretend that this isn't a thing. 20th century technology, 20th century civilization, and 21st century civilization operates on oil. And to say that it doesn't is nuts. But to say that we fought that war for oil, I will give you some counter evidence. When Iraq withdrew from Kuwait, they did exactly what I just said we didn't do when we left the Philippines. They blew up every single one of those oil fields, oil wells. So what did America do? We have the United States Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marines off the coast. We are in Kuwait. We are on top of the oil. We are sitting on top of the oil because we're walking between these flaming derricks. So what did we do? We put the fires out and we came home. We had won a military victory, entirely our own. We had won a military victory in Kuwait, and we had, by the rules of law and certainly by any other precedent in human history, the right and certainly the opportunity to simply stay there and take the oil. But we didn't. We came home. We still pay for that oil. And I said this during the Iraq War. We're just in it for oil. Well, if we're just in it for oil, then why are we paying the gas prices that we're paying? If we're really that evil and that nefarious and that we're going to destroy anybody, and if they've got any country that has oil, we're just going to come and take it. Then why don't we take it? Then why don't we take it? Because we don't. We pay for it. And you can't argue that. It's just plain nuts. It's nuts. We could have simply, and this is true for Iraq as well, for the Iraq War, we could have simply, instead of getting into the cities, instead of trying to bring, democracy and government, all that other stuff, what we could have done in Iraq is we could have simply gone, ignored the cities completely. That's where we took all of our casualties. It's horrible, horrible warfare, urban warfare. But if we really were invading Iraq for the oil, what would that look like? What would it look like if you're right and I'm wrong? What would it look like if we were an imperialistic power that was fighting them for oil? We wouldn't have touched the cities. We wouldn't give a damn about elections. We wouldn't have gone in there and tried to make sure the elections were free and fair. Let those people starve and eat each other. We don't care. We're going to put an armored cauldron, an armored cordon around the oil fields. We're gonna have full air support over where the oil fields are, and then we're gonna run convoys from those oil fields down to Basra, where American tankers will load up the free oil and sell it the hell out of there, and we won't take any casualties. I don't care what happens to the Iraqi people in that circumstance. And what are they going to do? Nothing. That's what a war for oil would look like. We're going to get our objective, we cover our objective, we secure our objective, we secure the routes, we secure the passage of the tankers out of there, and we don't spend a dime or a drop of blood on any of that stuff about the so-called Iranian people. That's what a war for oil looks like. And I know because I have some fundamental understanding of what the military does. So, of course, it's not a war for oil. You can argue that it was a bad decision. You can argue that we were wrong when we thought that you could bring a democratic society to people who may want it but didn't know how to handle it. I think we lost the purpose of the Iraq War on the day that we agreed that the Iraqis could write their own constitution, which I think would have been, I'm totally fine with them being able to write their own constitution. But when we allowed the Iraqi constitution to be based on Sharia law, then I just said, well, Why? That's like after the end of World War II, we allowed the Japanese military to continue to run the country. It was That's why we fought the war. We we we, we should have just said no, not acceptable. We should have had a I was such a fan of David Petraeus. I was such a fan of him. I wrote an essay about him. I thought he was a warrior poet. I still have unbelievable levels of respect for him as a professional soldier. I thought he was the smartest general in a generation. But when I found out that Petraeus was sending 70, 80 text messages to this woman reporter, he was, presumably in a relationship with or trying to get into a relationship with. I frankly couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that a man that capable and that wise and that smart and that gifted could do something so unbelievably weak. It practically made me cry. But if he had been a better man and if he'd had the support of somebody who understands what war is, David Petraeus should have been installed as the dictator of Iraq, the de facto dictator of Iraq. We would call him an advisor, and he should have sat there and dealt with the Iraqi people and said, this is good, this is good, this is good, this is good, not this. This is good, not this, not this. We will stand out there. You're going to select a constitution. You're going to have elections for your leaders. We're not going to tell you who you're going to get, but we will tell you who you won't get. And then when that election is over and you elect an Iraqi president, he will stand on a podium and I will stand behind him because he's the new ruler of Iraq, the new leader of Iraq rather, and we are going to make sure that we don't have to come back here again. That's not what happened. So when Trump said 4 to 6 weeks, I thought, oh, that's not smart. And when he said we're going to resume negotiations with the Iranians, my instant reaction was, about what, Mr. President? What are you going to negotiate with them for? The fact that you say you're going to negotiate with the existing Iranian regime is saying that we would, on some level, tolerate it. There is no negotiation. It's unconditional surrender. They've got to go. If this thing ends and Islamists are still in charge of Iran, it will be an absolute failure. An absolute failure. It'll be a political failure, and it'll be a moral failure. You think, well, why don't the Iranians rise up and overthrow their government? Well, they tried to do that back in June after we hit them with Midnight Hammer, and they killed between 30 or 300,000 of them. I've heard several reports from Iranians on the ground in Iran who say, I don't know anybody who was killed in the U.S. airstrikes, but I know 7 people who were murdered by our own government for protesting back in June. So, there you go. Lady Hawk says, too bad they can't just be nuked into a glass parking lot. I'm just going to take a quick diversion here. I think we got off of the ideal timeline, this multiverse thing where splits and, they did this and this and we're on this, sometimes it feels like we're on like the lowest possible. We're not on the lowest possible timeline, but we're not on the best one either. And I, honest to God, have got it so clear in my head where we dropped the ball that got us into this world that we're in now. I can tell you the date. I mean, I don't have it in memory, but I could give you the date. I think America got off of its ideal timeline when President Truman told Douglas MacArthur that we would not use nuclear weapons against massed Chinese forces in North Korea. I think that was the biggest mistake this country ever made. Korean War started when communists from North Korea invaded the South without warning. With the backing of the Soviet Union, they pushed South Koreans and Americans all the way down to um, Busan. Um, they basically just went all the way down the peninsula, and we just hung on. Then we started bringing in American supplies and reinforcements from Japan, held the line, and then MacArthur does this incredible flanking maneuver at Incheon, and we push them all the way back out, and then we go all the way to Pyongyang, and we're going to win this war, and we've got a free Korea. We are in Pyongyang. We went through Pyongyang, just dealing with them, and China gets into the war with these human wave attacks. Pusan Pocket. Steve says he's been there, and so right at the moment of victory, which was 6 months into the war, 3 months or something, it was incredible. I did the history of the Korean War and in the Cold War, and the entire Korean War happens in the first 3 months, and then the next 3 years are just nothing. But China gets into this fight, they sneak their troops in there, and now what we have is we have an absolute wasteland. There's nothing there but frost and mountains and pockets of Chinese soldiers in the millions. They got into this war against us. We didn't invade China. They decided to come into this, and we had a chance to simply nuke those bastards out of existence. There's not a drop of collateral damage. Every single one of these things is the most legitimate military target it is. Concentrations of enemy troops on the march to attack our guys with overwhelming numbers. And MacArthur said, we can put an end to this right away with nuclear weapons. And Truman said no. I guess he was afraid that Russia would get into the war. Well, Russia was in the war. The war happened because Kim Il-sung, right? Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-il, Kim Il-sung had gone to Stalin and said, we can cause trouble for the Americans. And Stalin said, okay, go ahead, do it. Attack them. We'll give you some air support. But they didn't. Not at first. So right then, we could have basically nuked the Chinese out of that war. And what would have happened then? Well, first of all, instead of this stalemate that's been going on since 1953 with these two Koreas, there would be one unified Korea. But much more importantly, much more importantly, the entire planet would have learned that the United States of America is serious about freedom and serious about stopping communism. We didn't invade North Korea. North Korea invaded South Korea. If we had pulled out the nukes and nuked completely military targets, it would have been absolutely morally justifiable, certainly more morally justifiable than Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and both of those were justifiable. And if we had done that, there would never have been a Vietnam. And there wouldn't have been any other trouble either, because Vietnam is inconceivable if we had done that, because they would have known that we're not messing around. They would have known that we meant it, but we didn't. We didn't. Eric got there just a few seconds after I did. There would have been no Vietnam War. There would have been no 60s conflict. There would have been no cultural divide. If you look at the 60s before Tet, when we think of the 60s, like the hippie 60s, that's really only 3 or 4 years. Most of the 60s was the Kennedy 60s. That was skinny tie 60s. That was madman 60s. That was America at the height of its power 60s. And the Vietnam War split this country right down the middle, and all of these black guys getting drafted as well, and all of the race riots, none of this would have happened. None of it. We would be on frickin' Titan now if he had used nuclear weapons against the Chinese. I cannot believe that was done, because when I did the Cold War, I said there were only 2 presidents that really understood what we were up against, and that was the first one and the last one. It was Truman and Reagan, although technically George H.W. Bush was the last president of the Cold War. If we had done that, it would have been entirely different game. And not only that, it would have been the end of Islam. It would have been the end of all of this. I don't even think we lost our nerve. I don't know what it well. I don't know. I would destroy Tucker Carlson on the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs. I would destroy him. Destroy him. on it. No question. No question. I'm not even going to get into it because if I do, it's going to take the rest of the show. But it is. Tucker has an opinion. I have data, and my data doesn't come from American think tanks or conservative think tanks. My data comes from the Japanese high command. That's where my data comes from. I'd wipe him out. I think I saw, I did see a clip. I don't know how old it is, of Matt Walsh on Rogan, and I think Matt went on to defend that the moon landing was real, and Rogan says, "Did you see the video of the astronaut walking near the flag and the flag waves?" And Matt said, "Oh, I didn't see that. I don't know anything." Yeah, I think Matt Walsh really thinks he's. I really think he thinks he's Mr. Space Program guy, and if I had an hour with Rogan, it'd be over. Not just on the atomic bombs, it would be over on the moon landing. It'd just be over. And just last show we were talking about the questions that I would ask Bob Lazar, and that'd be the end of Bob Lazar. So the thing I would also add finally about the Iran war thing is the what is in America's interest? Well, it's in America's interest that we don't go to war. That's my that would be my rule as president, is how do we avoid war? And the way that we avoid war is by being overwhelmingly strong and powerful, and not just in terms of our capability, but also in terms of our intent. If it was known that we were serious about this and consistent, then that would be it. But the main thing that I think that the Iran war is accomplishing is it is killing two birds with one stone. It's getting rid of a regime that we cannot allow to have nuclear weapons, a regime that's been at war with us and is long overdue for us to come back and actually get on the field. Because for the last 50 years or so, it's been like Iran has been playing us in a football game and we haven't been on the field. So that's number one. And number two, the main thing I think we're accomplishing is we are forcing China into a we are removing China's military options, because China is much like the Islamic regimes in the sense that it's much like Imperial Japan. They are convinced that the future belongs to them, and they're convinced that they can outproduce us and outfight us and all the rest of it. But by taking the Venezuela regime down and taking the Iranian regime down, we basically cut about half of the oil supply into China, and in the process, we have also shown China that the Chinese weapons that defended the airspace over Venezuela and the Chinese and Russian weapons that have defended the airspace over Iran are nuisances, as far as we're concerned. Nuisances. And as I mentioned before, I was on a right angle. Despite all the talk about America being a power in decline, powers in decline do what the Royal Navy does. They used to be the most powerful Navy in the world, and they simply don't pay for it anymore, and their ships get older, and they sit back on their laurels, and then they have a little burst of, well, geez, I feel bad, so they built these two aircraft carriers that they can't support because they don't have the support ships for it. Great Britain is a power in decline. People who want to make that argument about the United States are going to have to convince me, because we have the most powerful Navy in the world. We have the most potent military, single military piece of hardware in the history of the planet, and that's the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. And we are not letting our there's 11, I think 11 or 12 Nimitz-class carriers sit and we're sitting on our laurels and basking in our glory. Nope. We're replacing them with something that is much better. We're replacing our LA-class attack subs with something that is much better. We're replacing our Ohio-class nuclear ballistic subs with something that is better. We're replacing our F-22, which is unequaled in the world, with something that's better. That is not a culture in decline. That's a culture that has got an active future and is ready to protect it. And I think that's awesome. Awesome. So there you go. Capital G Geek, greetings from swamps of Northern Virginia. Flesh Simulator YouTuber had mentioned the difference between right and left and compared them to vertebrates and insects. The right are vertebrates with a lot of squishy edges, but a shared structural core that keeps them together. The left are like insects with an exoskeleton where they don't have much in common except for their outer-facing shell, pet issue. They all have to vigorously support all the pet issues so that the rest will support their own. Looking at it this way, can we use one group against another to break their shells? Gays versus Muslims would be like the easy one, but they both seem to have the commonality of lowering the age of consent. What are some of the other issues that could be used to divide them? Before I get into that specifically, which is a really great question, we have two. I'll get to you with the left. But just since we've been talking about Iraq War and war history, since Korea and so on, there are two absolutely monumental weaknesses in an Islamic enemy, and we have never used either one of them. And we have physical evidence that one of them is the equivalent of a nuclear bomb. The first thing that we've never done is, at least not in any muscular, effective way, is that when we talk about Islam, we talk about Islam as if it's monolithic, but it's not. Islam is split right down the middle between Shias and the Sunnis. And this is an issue that is so close, since they're fanatical about their religion. They're not devout, they're fanatical. There's a difference. A lot of devout Christians, and Christianity is a religion of forgiveness and is in fact a religion of peace. Islam is a religion of war. Islam is a religion of peace thing that we heard back at the beginning of the 21st century, biggest lie ever told. But Islam is divided amongst itself. Sunni Islamist center of power is probably Saudi Arabia. Shia center of power is Iran. But we could be doing an awful lot of things to put those two factions against each other. I would be, if I was seriously at war with Islam, I'd be doing all kinds of false flag things, and I'd be doing all the propaganda, and I would find every hot button I possibly could, and get these two factions to fight each other the same way that our enemies have gotten our factions to fight each other and weaken our country. So, yes, Quibo says Christians are Catholic, Baptists, Mormons, etc., but we're not killing each other over it. And we're not. I know that in quiet evenings, Baptists, Mormons, you said Catholic, Baptists, and Mormons. Let's make it Catholic, Protestants, and Mormons. I know that in the quiet hours, the Catholics believe that the Protestants and the Mormons don't really understand Christ, and same goes for the other three. But we're not at war with each other about it, and there's no way to tell in regular society whether a person is Catholic, Protestant, or Mormon, or whether they're Christian. Our society doesn't function along religious lines, so that division is not a weakness for us. It is an enormous difference in Islam, and I would use that heavily. But I'll tell you the one thing that we didn't do and we should have done in Iraq, and this goes to show you how morally inverted we've become as a country. I had no problem whatsoever, and I still have no problem saying we should have nuked the daylights out of the Chinese and Korean War, because that would have been good for America. What's good for America is good for humanity. I believe that in the bottom of my heart. But especially, this is much more true when you're dealing with terrorism than even dealing with like an Islamic army, like the Iranian army or the Iraqi army. But it works for them too. Their religion is so rigid and so vindictive and so absolute that the one thing that we could have done to put an end to all of this Islamic terrorism is what we did, what we actually did in the Philippines with the Moros when there was a Islamic uprising in the Philippines. The brief period, I don't know how long it was, 30, 40 years, I guess, when we were actually occupying the Philippines after the Spanish-American War, that's as close as we came to becoming an actual empire. Mark Twain saw this and was disgusted by it. But there were Muslim uprisings at the beginning of the 20th century. And these Moros were just plain doing what insurgents do. Picking off our guys, we'd go to fight them, they'd run and hide. That's exactly the way you fight an asymmetrical war. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And we were having real problems with the Moros. And then we caught a bunch of them at, what's the name of that crater? Now, this was probably a massacre, and it's not something I don't think I'm particularly proud of. I don't know the details of the battle. It was certainly a battle. It wasn't like we just lined up civilians, but it was a battle. But when the battle was over, we took the Moros that had been killed, and we put them in this pit, and we threw in a bunch of pig carcasses, and we let enough of the Moros go back and tell their comrades what they saw. And that was the end of the Moro uprising. That was the end of it. Muslim terrorists do what they do because they are convinced that they will go to heaven and get their 72 virgins. That's why they blow themselves up. Their religion says, this is a gift. It's just a gift. Their religion says that if they come in contact with pork or other unclean items, they are not allowed into heaven. That's what their religion says, and they believe it. They believe it as much as they believe in the martyr's death for paradise. So what we should have done is, in Iraq, at the beginning of the war on terror, right after 9/11, in Afghanistan and in Iraq, we should have shown videos of our guys greasing our bullets with pig fat. Every single round that came out of our bullets should have been covered in pig grease. And if we had done that, that would have been the end of the Muslim terrorist campaign, because they are trapped in their ideology. They cannot escape it. There's no escape clause. Allah doesn't make exceptions in this case. If we had done what we did with the Philippines, it would have been over the second that we showed that. It would have been over, because they don't get into heaven if they get shot with. Their bodies are not allowed into heaven if they come in contact with swine. If you were writing like a science fiction story or an art or just like a game or something, you couldn't, kryptonite, that's the word I'm looking for. You couldn't give the West, you could not give the West a better, easier, more effective weapon than this. It doesn't mean we have to sacrifice our people. It doesn't mean, it's like, here's the key, here's the gift, I've given it to you on a platter. And we didn't do it because we would rather have 4,000 American patriotic young men killed than to be seen as disrespecting their religion. That's why we didn't do it. That would have been seen as offensive to Muslims. So Not only did we lose 4,000 guys, I don't know how many of their guys they lost. The best number I heard was something like 60 to 80,000 Al Qaeda fighters died in Iraq, not in the Mall of America, in Iraq, by Americans. And all we had to do was grease our bullets. And every time that we had these prisoners, we should have just slaughtered a pig and sprinkled the blood over their bodies, and it would have been over. And this isn't speculation, because that's exactly what happened with the moral uprising. It's exactly what happened. It is their kryptonite, and we don't use it because we don't want to hurt their feelings. See, that's how messed up we are. Oh no, we can't do that. Why? Why? Well, that shows disrespect for the entire religion of Islam. Well, that's who we're fighting. Would you rather hurt their feelings, or are we going to have to turn them all into radioactive waste? I'd rather hurt their feelings. I think that's more merciful to me. If that's what it takes to stop it and protect our country and our people, not to mention their people, that's it. Over. It's over. They can't escape it. I think, like I said, I can't believe it's actually real. It's such a simple game-winning solution. And by the way, I just want to be clear on this. I'm not saying that if we murdered 10,000 of their civilians, it would come to an end. No, on the contrary, that we don't. This is what stops us from having to kill people and bomb places where they are with civilian casualties. All you have to do is just make it crystal clear. We should have dropped, for every bomb that we dropped on Afghanistan and in Iraq on enemy positions, and we call in these precision-guided weapons, I think that we should have had every fifth or every 10th bomb not filled with explosives, but just filled with pig intestines. It should have just gone down and just gone, and that would have made it clear that we're not fucking around. We're just, why? Even though Islam uses child soldiers, yes. The picture I saw early in the Iraq War, I knew I was on the right side morally when I saw a picture. There were two Army, U.S. Army guys, and they were shoulder to shoulder, and they were firing, and an Iraqi woman and child were hiding behind them. They didn't put the women and children in front of them to use as human shields. They were the human shields for the ostensive enemy. How do you lose like that? How? Because you get wrapped up in this virtue signaling, sentimental, ridiculous nonsense. And I don't know what to do about that. Cuba says, what would you do if you have a 12-year-old Islamic boy pointing at you, pointing a gun at me? I do what Chris Kyle would have done. Was it Chris? I would just say, please put that down, kid. Please don't make me kill you. Don't make me kill you. Please. Please. But if he had an RPG or something and he was aiming it at our guys, then I would have shot him. And I would have felt miserable about it. But we could have saved the Islamic world from Islam. Yeah, Craigie says, I saw a video of U.S. forces laying down fire to cover a comrade who ran out into a gunfight to rescue a 12-year-old child caught in the crossfire. That's who we are. And we let these leftist weenies convince us that we're the bad guys. Anyway, back to the question. Queers for Palestine is, as I said before, when the insect overlord archaeologists arrive in the year 69,483 and they put together their museum of the human species, when it comes time for their exhibit hall on the first quarter of the 21st century, engraved over the top should be Queers for Palestine. That should be the name of the exhibit. Because it is impossible to think of a real world example of insanity that is more crystal clear than Queers for Palestine. You have to be so out of touch with reality, just so completely enthralled to an insane set of morals that are designed to make you feel better about yourself. And you have to be able to be capable of such unbelievable doublethink to be able to say out loud, Queers for Palestine. But yes, this is the kind of fault line that we should be constantly exploiting. Constantly. We should, for example, I'm talking in the most general terms here, capital G, we should basically force the left to say, the first part will be easy. We should force the left to say, Muslims have every right to be in this country and have absolutely 100% support of the left. That the left and the Democratic Party completely, totally, and unconditionally supports Islam and the principles of Sharia. That's easy. And then we should say, terrific. Now, what we want is we want Muslim Americans to make the exact same pledge. We want the Muslim Americans to say the exact same thing, that we as Muslims stand behind our gay, lesbian, and transgendered fellow citizens, and we unconditionally support their right to exist in America without prosecution or fear of retribution. And I would make them stick to it. They will not say it. They can't say it. They cannot. And then I would say, well, that's interesting, isn't it? LGBTQ people, you've come out fully in support of their right to live their lives as Muslims, including things like Sharia law. But when you ask them to support you in just the exact same language, they won't do it. Why do you think that is? Then I'd read them a few passages from the Quran. They would say, well, that's just extremism. They don't really believe that. And then I would show these feminists videos of women being stoned to death for the crime of being raped. Not even adultery, being raped. Being raped. I would show it to them, and I'd not stop. I've seen women stoned to death. I look for these things. It's horrible. And I would say to them, which one of these are you going to come down? What side of this are you going to come down on? This person you seeing, yeah, I know it's MMWIG2SL. By the way, that's another gift, infidel. They don't call themselves LGBTQ IA++. Now it's MMWIG2SLGBTQQIA+, and I say fantastic. Donnie Girl says they will say but use Takaya. Yes, I know that Muslims are encouraged to lie to the infidels, but the leaders cannot come out and say it because they'll lose support of their own people. They can't say it. They can pretend to say it, but they can't say it, and I make them say it. But I would show them these women being stoned for the crimes of being raped, and I would say to them, do you support the Muslims' right to practice their religion as they see fit, or do you support the idea that stoning a 17-year-old girl or a 12-year-old girl to death because she was raped by her uncles is an abomination that should be not tolerated anywhere in the world? Which one of those Which one of those do you support? And I would not ever let it go. Yeah, it's missing and murderous indigenous women and girls. Keep adding them. I thought when I heard it, I thought, oh, this is a gift from heaven. It's a gift from heaven. Um, and 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 add DV OS in there too. Disenfranchised victims of slavery. Just make sure that it gets as absurd as possible. So these are the things. Yeah, it's 100%. You just make them confront their own contradictions. Make them, the same way I did when I was talking to those students at Oberlin. Well, we're all socialists. Well, then bring down your phones. Bring your phones down. We'll take them to a pawn shop and we'll distribute $20 to people all throughout the city of Cleveland, I guess it was. I don't remember. Make them confront their contradictions. We don't have contradictions. We don't. I've seen people say, I've seen like armed black men walking through a park, and they've all got, like AR-15s. And I've heard liberals say, well, what do you white guys think about this now? I said, I think they're exercising their constitutional rights, is what I think. I fully support their constitutional rights. What you want me to say they don't have a right to own guns because they're black? That's in your mind. That's not in my mind. I would. I had another example that was similar to that. What was it? But you get the idea, right? Make them declare. That's the word I'm looking for. Make them declare. You're trying to be on both sides of an issue. They're antithetical. They are either or. Declare. Gosh, I forget what it is. Anyway, you get the idea. So hopefully that'll do it for that one. Steve Young, evening, Bill. I think President Trump's plan for America is to reestablish deterrence, amen, as the foundation of American foreign policy. We will actually back up what we say. What say you? Steve, I hope I've covered most of this by now. Obviously, been talking about that pretty much the whole time. But yes, deterrence is it. And by the way, deterrence is more subtle than just deterring people from aggression against us. What I've been talking about tonight is what we've accomplished and how quickly we've accomplished it in Venezuela and Iran has deterred China from invading Taiwan. I don't think that there is anybody in China who now believes that the invasion of Taiwan is possible. And again, it's a lack of moral clarity, which I think Donald Trump is very, very good at. But if China were to invade Taiwan and we did not get in that fight, we would be very sorry. Not just because we'd lose access, well, not just because of the millions of innocent people that would die, and not just because we'd lose access to chips and all the rest of that stuff. If they were able to take Taiwan and keep it, then they would be thinking they could continue to take other things and keep it. So if I was the president of the United States, I would simply say this. Taiwan is a friend of the American people. I would say that the Chinese people in World War II who hid and protected our airmen during the Doolittle raid and throughout the war suffered horrifically at the hands of the Japanese. At least 200,000 Chinese civilians were murdered and executed simply for protecting and defending our flyers on the Doolittle raid. Those Chinese people are not in Beijing. Those Chinese people moved. They're in Taiwan now. We owe those people. And those people are our friends and allies. And I am here to say categorically that it is the policy of the United States of America that any attack upon Taiwan will be considered an act of aggression against our allies, and we will respond in a manner of our choosing. because that would put an end to the invasion of Taiwan. It, people say things like, well, you're just a warmonger and this is your opinion and you're a keyboard warrior and all the rest. No, I've got actual data. I believe what I believe because it's provably true. If something were provably true the other way, I'd change my mind. But for example, when Vladimir Putin publicly says on television that if Donald Trump had been president of the United States, he would not have invaded Ukraine, then that is it. Crikey says, would that mean nuclear war? No, it would not. If we made it clear to China before that invasion, then what we do is very simple. When they're ready to sail, I understand how the invasion of Taiwan works. China's clearly outproduced Taiwan in terms of military capability. The scenario generally looks like China just loads the Chinese coast, and I mean packs them shoulder to shoulder with long-range missiles, and these long-range missiles fly across the Taiwan Strait. They overwhelm the Taiwanese defenses, and they just plain, using conventional weapons, they take out airfields, take out Taiwanese bases, they take out Taiwanese military installations, take out all this other stuff. There's no way to stop that. They have overwhelming superiority in missile technology. So I'm not going to put American lives at risk. I sure as hell am not going to put them on the beaches of Taiwan. So if we declare that we will be supporting our allies in this, if China wants to go ahead and do that, that's fine. They would do it. They would do it in order to make their landings successful. The first thing they would have to do is essentially wipe away at long distance by a remote control the main force of Taiwanese military resistance. And then they have to get into transports, and they don't go 30, 40 miles, 50 miles, or whatever it was in the Normandy landings. They got to go through 120 miles of open water, and I would have American nuclear attack subs take out every single one of those transports and their escorts. It's not a question of fighting the Chinese on the beaches of Taiwan. None of them would get there. None of them. I would just have our American subs positioned, and I'd have a lot of them. And essentially, our strategy would be, in the first instance of the attack, I would get all of our boats behind the Chinese hunter-killer subs. I'd get them behind their boomers too, but I'd go after their anti-sub subs. And the first thing I would do on the second that the president said go is I would have a couple of American boats behind every Chinese boat out there. They're loud, they're noisy, no match for us. And I'd put torpedoes into their attack subs. And once their attack subs are down, they have no naval defenses against submarines, at which point I would give them every single Tomahawk and Harpoon missile that we've got in the tubes. And I wouldn't go after their warships. I'd go after their transports. And then I'd go after their warships. And that would cost us no casualties. So the question is, if it turned out that American subs sank Chinese transports, would the Chinese nuke America over it? And I don't think that they would. In fact, I am confident that they would not, especially if we declare before. They are the aggressors here. We did not use nuclear weapons. We used conventional weapons. And by the way, if we had done what I said we should have done in Korea, then they would have known. If we had done what we said that we would, if we had done what we should have done in Korea, I think the Chinese Communist Party would have been finished, and there wouldn't, and China would be part of the family of nations. Wouldn't be our adversaries. They'd be our partners. And the whole world would basically be a much nicer place to live in. And all of the support of the left comes from communism. I'm not saying they're still getting checks from like the Russians or the Chinese, although they are. I'm saying if we had stamped out that ideology after World War II, then what is it that the left is? The left, I saw a line once, it was so elegant, it was so simple. I think it was something like, peace is simply the absence of resistance to freedom. That's what I would do. Quib artist, and then Eric Blake. Okay, here we go. Quib artist, you talked a lot about younger generations not knowing enough history, names, places, and major events, and I agree foundational knowledge still matters because people need context and a framework to avoid being manipulated. But in a world of AI tools like an instant access to information, do you think education should shift away from heavy memorization and focus more on teaching people how to retrieve accurate information, verify sources, synthesize huge amounts of knowledge, use good judgment, and apply creativity? In other words, should the future of education be less about memorizing everything and more about teaching people how to funnel the right information at the right time? I'm glad you asked that. I'm glad you asked it the way you did. I'm sorry, I've got a super chat here. Let me just deal with this real quick. Rob Caruso in YouTube says, can you do a podcast about your addictions meetings? You mentioned that before in a podcast. I will, Rob, and I'm not at liberty to really get into much of, well, I'm making a decision that I'm not going to get into much about that now, but by June or July, I may have an awful lot to say on that issue, an awful lot. And I know that sounds mysterious and it's a tease, and I'm just going to leave it at that. But yes, I'd love to. So Quiba, here's the thing. Memorization and rote memorization, which is so decried by modern educators as a complete waste of time and not only a foolish but basically an immoral thing to do to people, make them memorize something. What are we really talking about in this process of rote memorization? What is the actual, if you look at it as an engineering system or as a diagram, a flow diagram, what is memorization doing? What is its purpose? Memorization is taking external information and making it internal information. That's all it is. It's making external information internal information. And because it's internal, it becomes part of your consciousness, becomes part of all of your decision-making abilities, all of your questions, all of your philosophy, all of your interests, all of that. It's taking external information and making it internal information. Now, let's take the most, let's take an example that is most favorable to the position that you shouldn't have to memorize anything. When I was a kid and we would come to Pennsylvania once a year, I remember at least for 1 year, and it might have been 2 or 3, but I'm sure it was 1. Yes, Dave Big Booty beat me to it. That when I was on this vacation, I was expected when I got back that I would have memorized the multiplication tables. And the memorization that was required was you had to go up to 12 times 12. So you had to do your 1 times table, your 2 times table, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. So your 4 times table is 4 1s are 4, 4 2s are 8, 4 3s are 12, 4 4s are 16, 4 5s are 20, 4 6s are 24, 7 4s are 28, 8 4s are 32, 9 4s are 36, 10 4s are 40, 11 4s are 44, 12 4s are 48. Okay, and that is tedious because that is rote memorization, and it's just plain, you had to do it again. It's like learning lines if you've ever been in a play. I know most people haven't, but learning lines in a play is like that. You just have to do it and do it and do it and do it and do it until you do it, and then when you've got it, then you've got it. And actually it's a pretty good analogy because if you know your lines, you can concentrate on the acting. If you don't know what you're going to say, you can't. The information that your character has on stage has to be internal information. This least, I learned my times table when you get out of school, or geometry. As it turns out, I haven't had to use geometry much since I've gotten out of school. I certainly haven't had to calculate sines or cosines or anything like that. But I know what a sine and a cosine is. I know what the principles of a right triangle are. I understand the basics of geometry. That's internal now. And I can think about these things internally. So let me give you an example of my kind of, my side of the argument. if you teach history and geography and you do it through memorization, you will learn where Italy is. Now, I've seen on things like the Whatever podcast these depraved, entitled, sad, lunatic chicks laughing that they cannot name 3 countries in the world. But every one of them thinks that they're going to get a guy who's making 6 figures, has a 6-pack, and is over 6 feet tall. So every one of these girls there, even the mids, but let's take the actual 9s and 10s. Every now and then they get like a real beauty on the Whatever podcast, and she's convinced that a guy who makes $1 million a year or more is going to marry her. And the reason I want to get on that podcast is to say, look, there's no doubt he'll date you. But if you think he's going to marry you, you are out of your mind. A man who makes $1 million or $10 million a year moves in a circle of other men who make $10 million a year, and all of them are highly educated. Do you think that this guy is going to embarrass himself by being seen at a party, at an event, at somebody's house with somebody who's clearly a hooker, who doesn't know where Italy is on a map? Do you think a man like that is going to sit on an airplane and talk to you for 8 hours about Italy when you don't even know where on the globe you're heading? Do you actually think that people who have that kind of access and those kind of options are going to sit there and try to talk about an Italian vacation that you want to go on when you not only know nothing about Italy, you don't even know where it is? You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. No question you are hot, and no question he's gonna definitely gonna get what he can from you. But if you think this guy's gonna marry you, you're just plain delusional. Not a chance. If you don't know how many planets are in the solar system, if you don't know if the sun is bigger than the moon, if you can't describe the basics of economics, if you don't know who fought in World War II, if you don't know what year or decade the moon landing happened, there is not a man in the world who you consider somebody worthy of you that would ever take you to a party where you have to talk. Ever. I saw at Dalton, it was redacted, but he said they'll never take Pluto away from me. Ever. You don't realize how embarrassing you are to men like that when you cannot name all of the countries of Europe. If you don't know where Japan is, if you don't know who fought in World War II, and you think he's going to take you to a party or a villa or a cruise with people who have extraordinary educations, these men can get any women they want, and the women that they get are women who are first of all virtuous, they're kind, they're feminine, and they're educated. They can actually carry a conversation. I took Natasha. She got here after Friends of Abe was a big thing. In fact, she got here after Friends of Abe ended. And Gary Sinise was in town. He was getting ready to leave, and we had a kind of a like an old timers dinner. Meeting, actually, it was a meeting, and there were probably 25 or 30 of us there, and James Woods was there, and Johnny Voight was there, Gary was there, obviously, a bunch of other people, and a bunch of my old friends. And as we did in the meetings, we just went around the room, and everybody had a chance to say something. And it came to me, and I said a few things. And then it came to Natasha's turn. And Natasha didn't say, I don't want to say anything. She didn't do that at all. She stood up and she talked about what it was like to see American movies in the last days of the Soviet Union. They ran them only on the 31st of January of December. For the Russians, New Year's is Christmas and the 4th of July and New Year's. It's all of those wrapped into one. My house, we don't get a Christmas tree. We get a New Year's tree. I've just gotten used to it. And Natasha got up and she said, they tried to keep this from us, but in the last days of the Soviet Union, between midnight and 4 a.m. on January 1st, they would let us see Western movies. And she said, and the first Western movie I can remember seeing was Once Upon a Time in America, which starred James Woods. And she said, and it was my first view of the country, and it was my first chance to see Mr. Woods, and I was just so impressed by the acting and the freedom, and I was impressed by this. And she said like 4 or 5 things buttering up, kind of James Woods, not trying to butter him up, just talking. And I remember the effect that that he had on me, and what an honor and a pleasure it is to see him here. And she went on. I said, okay, honey, I think he got it. I think he got it. And James said something. No, putting on the brakes. No, don't put on the brakes. Just continue. Go ahead. It was a great moment. But she was articulate, and she was intelligent. She had something interesting to say, and she's done this many times. Many times, she has stood up in front of people, very educated, intelligent people, and spoken in her second language, eloquently about what she likes about America. She also talks about what she likes about Russia. I am unbelievably proud of her, and I could take that woman anywhere. And these, to get back to your question, Quibo, is that she didn't have to check her phone to be interesting. I've said this before. I think it's one of the most profound things that I've ever said, if I do say so myself. The problem with your generation is not that you don't have the answers. The problem with your generation is you don't know what questions to ask. And you will never know what questions to ask as long as information is external. Yes, you can get reliable answers to any question you can ask, but how do you know what questions to ask? If you didn't memorize the basics of the Civil War, if that information did not become internal, then how do you ask a question about the Civil War? And by the way, what good does it do? If you don't know anything about the Civil War, and you say, well, how many days did Gettysburg last, and what days was it? When did it happen? You can find out that it took place on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of July in 1863, if I recall correctly. But will you know that was the turning point of the war? Will you know that was the high tide of the Confederacy? That stone wall at Pickett charged was as far as the Confederacy got. That was the high watermark of the Confederacy. And I've been to that wall, and I stand at that wall, and I know what happened there. I don't have to ask Rock. It doesn't do any good for me to ask Rock if I don't even know what questions to ask. I've stood at that wall, and I've understood, and the copse of trees. Dave knows about the copse of trees. So how did this transaction that you just saw happen? Right? How did it happen? Dave didn't have to go to his phone and ask about specific landmarks. Dave said, I've seen the copse of trees. The second he said that, I know exactly what he's talking about. Because as it turns out, the copse of trees is a location on the wall on the Union defense at a right angle. The wall makes a little bit of a right angle, so it comes back and then juts. And there's a small little copse, little group of trees there. And that's where Pickett's charge broke against that copse of trees on that right angle. That's not just where the attack broke. That's where the Confederacy lost the war. Right there. This tiny little area. It's the size of like, yeah, 2 or 3 SUVs. That's it. That's where history turned, right there. And he knows it, and I know it, and we know it because we learned it. And so it's not, when you say memorization, it's not memorization. It's learning. Learning is making something internal, and he would not have a clue about what to ask about Gettysburg. If he went to a Wikipedia entry on Gettysburg, they might mention the copse of trees, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. He's an educated man, despite his comments here on the stratosphere launch. And so he has an internal framework, and you can't put this mental framework together until you know the information, until it's internal. And so I have to say that the thing I genuinely feel such, and when I say pity, I don't mean pity in a superior way. I mean pity in terms of genuine sympathy and regret for young people that didn't get an education, because I have an idea of how small your information horizon is, but you have no idea how large mine is, and Dave's, and anybody else. And when I say your mental horizon, I'm not specifically pointing you out, Quibo. I'm talking about your generation. If you don't know where Italy is on a map, and you don't know the history of Italy, and you don't know about Rome, and you don't know about all the things that educated people know, then you're just getting out of a plane and walking around in an area that means nothing. And more than that, I've never been to Italy. There's a fair chance I never will go to Italy. It's not top of my list. I certainly would go if I had a chance, but it's not top of my list. But I know enough about Italy that I feel like I certainly understand the Italian mindset to the degree that an outsider can. And I know about Italian art, and I know about, and I know, for, I just picked Italy out of a hat, right? So since I know about Italy, I know about the history of Italy, I know about history of Italian art, I know about Leonardo, I know about Michelangelo. And you look at the statue of David, or you look at other Italian sculptors where the veins are visible on the hands, and the hands are made out of the hardest stone known to mankind. They've chiseled out of granite a living creature. This is the height of humanity. This is what human is being able to not only see that, but to be able to appreciate it. Eric says Cesare Borgia and Machiavelli and all of it. And that's just Italy. It's just Italy. And Monica Bellucci. So Dalton Burrows saying, I'm in the last year of millennials, hated school mainly due to stuff like No Child Left Behind. It allowed people who didn't care to slow down the class. Yes. So the pace of school was too slow to me. Yes. If schools had taken their basketball teams and their football teams and treated them the same way they treated history, and everybody had to get the same score, and nobody could run any faster than the slowest kid in class, that's Americans' educational system. Goes on to say, I feel more people would enjoy school if we would just tell people, if you don't try, you don't get to be here. Go do manual labor if you don't want to exercise your brain. Yes. But I'm talking about, I don't know how old I was. I was young. I was probably 8 or 9 years old when I learned something I think it might have been the day when a history teacher taught me two things, both of which were absolutely trivial. He said, the word sheriff, I know sheriff, I know what a sheriff is. I grew up watching westerns like all kids my age, you know, I know what a sheriff is. The sheriff is that that term sheriff is derived from shire. He's in charge of a region of the English countryside. Not the shire in the Lord of the Rings, but these are little shires, little tiny little areas. And the sheriff is the sheriff. He's the guy who's in charge of the shire. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. And then he said the word alarm. You all know the word alarm, right? Yeah, the alarm. I said alarm in the morning. He said the word alarm comes from all arm. When something was about to go wrong or you were being invaded, people would run through the streets and they would say, all arm, everybody grab your weapons, that's what alarm means. And I thought, damn, God, that's fantastic. And that's when I realized that that little piece of information went into like a web in my head, and I could see it pretty clearly. It's like this piece of information belongs here. This is where it belongs. And this web and this structure of interconnected nodes just keeps growing and growing and growing. And to me, frankly, that's the only part about death that I actually really resent. I don't fear it, but it bothers me that as you get older and older and older, if you keep learning, the world gets more and more and more interesting. And when I see technology, and mostly it's not the technology, when I see the politicization of education and how much you're being deprived of because these weak-minded people, for whatever reason, don't want students to do difficult things like memorize stuff. Well, then, I just feel so sad when I think the girls on whatever podcasts are great examples. I mean, Brian picks them for a reason, obviously. But when you hear them talk, I mean, when I think about things, just take astronomy. Now, I happen to be good at astronomy, but just I'm just talking general astronomical knowledge used to be available to everybody. Let me rephrase this. In-flight training, and just think about how many things you have to know internally just to fly an airplane. But in-flight training on ground school, especially on the oral exam to get your private pilot's license, what they would often do is they would unfold an aviation chart. And an aviation chart is standardized, and it has to represent, in 2 dimensions, a 3-dimensional environment, because you are in the 3rd dimension. So all of these airspaces that sit on top of each other and they have different rules have to be represented on a flat plane. And the way that's done is through color coding and through little boxes of informations and maximums and minimums and all the rest. But what they do, what a good flight examiner will do, is he'll get out a chart and he'll put his finger here or tap it with a pencil. I said, see the spot here, Bill? Yes, sir. I said, okay, I want you to tell me, if you're standing on that spot on the ground and you keep going up into the sky, I want you to tell me what the rules are. All right, we're in an urban area, so below 2,000 feet, you can see on the box here, we're in Class Echo airspace, and then from 2,000 and above, we are inside the Class Charlie airspace of Burbank Airport or whatever, and then as you continue to go up, at 6,000 feet, you're out of Burbank's airspace, you're back in Echo rules again, and then when you get to 14,000 feet, or is it 12.5? I guess it's been so long, I think it's 12.5. Then everything becomes Class Alpha airspace, because you're above this altitude, you have to be on instrument flight rules and blah, 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 blah. And the minimums and all this other stuff. Okay, so, good. Why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because I want to ask these people on the whatever podcast. Let's say you're sitting here at this table in Santa Barbara, and let's say that you just go up, and you just keep going up in your imagination, describe to me what you would see. Um, Describe to me what you would see. Well, I don't even think they'd understand the question. So I would say something like, "Well, I'll tell you what I'm talking about. As we get higher and higher and higher, the atmosphere starts to thin. We're using our imagination, so not that we're going to suffocate. But as we get higher and higher and higher, we get above the weather, we get into the stratosphere, the sky starts to get darker. As we go higher, we start to leave the atmosphere, and now we're above the Earth, and we can see the Earth below us. And as we get higher and higher and higher and higher, we can see the moon, which is actually much farther away than people realize. And as we go higher and higher and higher, they shrink and shrink and shrink. And as we get higher and higher and higher still, we begin to see, well, here's the sun, here's the orbit of Mercury, here's the orbit of Venus, here's Earth and Moon, here's Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto's in an eccentric orbit. We keep on going. Now we get these outer exoplanets like, Eris and all the rest of them. Out, 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 out. Now we get this cloud of comets called the Oort comet cloud. Out, 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 out. Keep up, back, 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 back. Here comes the nearest star, Alpha Centauri. Blah, 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 blah. Here's our local group of stars. Back, back, back. Now we can start to see the structure of our galaxy. Out, 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 out. Now we can see the entire Milky Way. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Now we can see the Milky Way and the local group, the Magellanic Clouds, 2 satellite galaxies. And here's Andromeda, which is bigger than we are. Here's our local group of galaxies, and we keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Now we can see that these entire groups of galaxies are strung out along these arms, and then you finally get all the way out there, and everything's got this kind of cobwebby sort of appearance where all of these clusters of galaxies form these filaments. That's what the universe is. That's what it looks like. And so I walk around with this in my head because I know it. Because I love it. I didn't. Nobody made me study all of that. But my point is, you should at least know. You should at least know that as you get higher, you leave the atmosphere. You see the Earth. You see the Earth and the Moon. You see the Sun, and 8 planets. Used to be 9. We'll just say that. 8 planets, and as you get further and further, you see stars, and then you see galaxies, and then you see clusters of galaxies. You need to know that. Because if you don't, then Andromeda and Italy are the same distance away. And they are to them. They are. When I ask somebody, when I ask somebody like that, what do you think? What's beyond your visual horizon? Of all the places you go every day, what's beyond that? Have you ever been on an airplane? Yes. Where did you go? Went to New York. Okay. How far away is New York from Los Angeles? Do you know where the two are, or did you just basically get into a tube and then get out of a tube and be someplace else? I don't know, man. But this this scale of the universe and this knowledge of geography and history is inside my head, and there is no way you can convince me that having it not be inside my head is an advantage. The purpose of AI is to multiply my intellect by providing me with the details that interest me that I don't have room for in the wetware. That's what AI is for. AI is to get me the exact wording of the Gettysburg Address, which I never did memorize, but that I can get pretty close to. AI is useful for lots of things like that. But if you don't have the stuff internally, then what do you get it for? And the thing I'll close on in this is that this is not only important, it's fun. It's fun. It's cool to know this stuff. It just gives me lots of things to think about and wonder about. And it also keeps me away from really, really bad ideas like the Earth is flat, which is very limiting, not only to your social prospects, but to your information horizon. You live on a dime. You don't see anything beyond what you see because you've never been forced to internalize knowledge that would give you a sense of perspective on things. And this applies to math, geography, history, all of that stuff. I'm not for a second going to say that people are badly taught, and anybody who teaches history just by saying you will remember these dates regardless of what they mean, that's just horrible teaching. But yeah, Crikey pointed it out, and it's kind of a clever thing to say. If you don't know where Italy is and Andromeda Galaxy are, then they might as well be in the same place. Mark Twain said that that a man who doesn't read has no advantage over a man who can't read. That's a profound statement, I think. Profound. All right, let's get these babies done here. Oy. Wow, man, have we been really going that long? Ay, caramba, 3-hour tour already. I can't believe it. All right, Quibble Artist again. I think the future skill stack looks more like as an example to glance at, not part of the question. 1, foundational knowledge, basic history, geography, science, civics, media literacy, enough to build a framework. I think this question has basically already been answered here. Yes. So we'll move on because I'm getting a little sore throat here. So we'll go on to the lovely and talented Eric Blake. Tonight, the case of the progressive poverty. Anyone who can do alliteration is a friend of mine. They're a marvel of mankind. They're a miracle of meticulousness. They're mavens of mastery. So, Bill, have you heard the news this week over the notoriously contemptible Southern Poverty Law Center? Yeah, a little bit. If not, Chief Patel's FBI has cracked down on a lot of them, revealing that the organization is responsible for the mass financial backing of various major Nazi and white supremacy groups, and, of course, the Klan. It turns out that Charlottesville was essentially a provocation, right? Heads will roll, and there will be great weeping and gnashing of teeth en masse from the activist left. So with karma coming in at last for the main overseers of cancel culture, how are you taking the news? Well, not surprised. I don't think it's going to affect the left very much. They seem not only immune to facts and logic, but they seem the left has, through natural selection, developed an adaptation that not only makes them comfortable with conflicting evidence, but actually happy with it. They have selected themselves for irrationality to the point where any attempt at rationality bounces off of them. They're like those animals that develop natural resistance to poisons because their main predators are poisonous, so they just plain revel in it. I don't think it's going to have any effect on them at the left, and I'm not entirely sure it's going to have much effect on the right, only because, at least in terms of so far, only because it's not a big surprise to us that they were corrupt. However, what this does mean is, while I don't think it's going to do much to change people's opinions, it does mean that the GD Southern Poverty Law Center is not going to be doing any more of this mischief in the future. So that's, to me, the big win. It's a powerful piece of the left taken off the board. It's like capturing a rook. Doesn't change what's happened in the game so far, but it means that rook is off the table, and that's just one less it's one less piece that we have to worry about. If I think probably just to close this thing tonight on this question issue, the left, the modern left, can never win. Their ideology doesn't make any sense, and the people that most closely follow their philosophy are the unhappiest people in the world. That doesn't mean that conservatives will win. We can both lose, but they can never win. They will never be happy. If you give them everything that they want, they become more miserable. Um, uh, and that is saying something. Conservatives can be happy. We are happy. In fact, if it weren't for these douchebags constantly trying to get over our fence into our yards to make us unhappy, we'd be perfectly happy with them being unhappy. But no, no, we have to defend the property, unfortunately. But we can be happy, and I'm sure by now everybody's seen those comparative charts of mental health, and it was based on a simple question: at any time in your adult life, have you ever had a medical professional suggest that you may have some kind of a mental illness? And for conservative men, the percentage is like 8%. For liberal women, it's above 50%. And everything in there is between those two, but they all track. Men tend to have lower mental issue, at least self-reported mental issues than women, and conservatives have far fewer than moderates, who have far fewer than liberals. The highest number of conservative women who report this are well below the lowest number of liberal men. They're not happy, and they're and the problem is that as they realize that you can't beat the biology out of people, and as they realize that the biology is going to win, they are not going to change their minds. I think the percentage of progressives who will change their minds with age and experience, I think probably in the best case it might be 25%, I would say. I think that's probably optimistic. I think probably 25% of modern progressives will at some point in their lives realize they were wrong and not come over to the Republican side, but just stop being such dweebs. But for the remainder of them, when they realize that their philosophy is not going to come true, that they're not going to be happy, that they will have no effect on anything, when they realize that the world is not going to end due to capitalism and rising sea levels and the patriarchy and all the rest of it, then they are going to get they're already getting very angry, psychotically angry, and a significant percentage of them are going to become murderously insane. I think we're clearly seeing that. I think the reaction that we saw from progressives on the assassination of Charlie Kirk was a wake-up call for a lot of us. It was certainly a wake-up call for me. It was a wake-up call to the degree that these people don't just disagree with us. They don't just hate us. These people want to kill us. They are actively calling for our deaths. And when somebody says that they're going to kill you, you should take them at their word. That is, and that's why Queers for Palestine needs to be the inscription over this period of human history, because they're the ones who think that they can violently defeat the calm, rational people who train with firearms for just this contingency. That's what they think. They think that they can. They actually think. I actually think they think that they can kill us. And the reason that they think that is because they're so disconnected from reality. Honestly, one of the most illuminating, enlightening, disappointing, catastrophic, sad, pitiful, shocking statements ever was when that woman, Good, gunned her car at the ICE guy. she thought, because she'd never had to face consequences before, she thought that she could run over a Nazi with impunity. But that's not the thing I'm talking about. When that agent shot her, her wife, or girlfriend, or whatever it was, the first thing out of her mouth was, "I can't believe they used real bullets." Think about that. That to me was that was like it's like a flash going off. It's like a flash bulb. It's like, I can't believe they used real bullets. That's the level of rhetoric that they live in. That's how far the world of rhetorical reality and actual reality is for them. They are astonished that by trying to run somebody over, they would shoot back but use real bullets. Man. I saw this young woman today, very young, I said probably 18, in her car, crying, talking to her phone because she doesn't have any friends to talk to. So she'll talk to her 5,000 friends or 50,000 friends or whatever. She didn't have any real friends, because if she had some real friends, she'd be over at their house talking to her friends. But she was just getting off of work, and she said, "I just had to fill up my car. Gas is $5 a gallon." And she started crying, and the reason she was crying, because she said, "I have to spend money to fill up my car so that I can go to work the next day to make money to pay my rent and fill up my car, and this is never going to end." And I said to myself, well, you figured it out. The question is she right to be upset about this? And the answer is actually extremely simple. I think the answer is, Miss, let's say we were to transport you from a world where you didn't have to pay rent, and you didn't have to go to work, and you didn't have to buy gas, and there was no money, and you had none of these obligations. But you did have to get your own food every day. Would you make that trade? Get you out of all of the rent, get you out of all the money, get you out of all the gas, out of all the financial worries, which I suffer from and most people do, get you away from all that stress, just put you out in the woods and say you no longer have to do any of these things. You're free of the patriarchy, you're free of capitalism. So how are you going to live? Because what she's saying is, I don't want to have to contribute to my own livelihood. It offends her that she has to do things in order to be fed. Let's get it down to brass tacks, man. Brass tacks. Okay, we'll get you away from all of that. But every day, you are going to have to get up, and you are going to have to go out and hunt and kill animals and skin them and cook them. You're going to have to plant crops, and you're going to have to tend them. You're going to have to gather enough firewood to keep yourself warm at night. You are going to not be able to call 911. You are not going to be able to be rescued by police. You are not going to have an internet. You're not going to have a phone. You're not going to have Snapchat. You're not going to have social media. You're not going to have any of it. You will be free of all of your obligations of a complex Western society, but you will have to provide for your own livelihood every day. And if you say that somebody else needs to take care of you, what you are saying is that person has to go out and gather food for himself and for you as well, and all of his family, and for you as well. And all of these people have to go and do twice as much work because you don't want to. You somehow deserve to be taken care of because you don't want, because you don't want to, because it's terrible. And she said, and this is just the beginning. This just goes on for the rest of your life. Well, yes and no, you know, yes and no. It will go on for the next, well, I think best case, the next 20 years. For the next 20 years, you're going to have to do stuff that you hate, or at least you don't love anyway. It's not that bad, but it's not fun. You're gonna do 15 to 20 years, if you're lucky, of getting up and living in an apartment that you really could feel like you'd be in a much better place, and driving a car that's older and has got problems, and you're going to go to a job you don't like, and you're going to get small paychecks, and you're going to live in non-luxurious apartments, but you will have the highest level of standard of living of anybody who's ever been in this spot before. You will, in fact, have a magical device that provides you with entertainment. You'll have air conditioning, you'll have electricity, you'll have plumbing, you'll have all of those things, and you'll have to do it for 20 years. If you're good at what you do, or if you have a plan, the time may come, and I think 20 years is about right. Certainly it was longer than that for me, but if you are willing to do things in addition to those horrible things that take up all your time, then you could get good at something. And if you get good at something, you can find a way to get paid to do what you're good at. But it has to be something useful. Nobody cares. Well, I almost said nobody cares if you're good at tie-dyeing, but if it turns out that you're very good at tie-dyeing, you can make a living doing tie-dye. But if you don't want to do the extra work to get good at something, then yes, this is life. And you can check out of the society. I'm not saying check out of the world. You can check out of society, but you cannot check out of the obligation that you have to be responsible for your own well-being. I am not obligated to feed you, and no one is. You are obligated to take care of yourself. If you were not such a narcissist, you probably could find somebody who would do that for you. In fact, since you're rather young and attractive, chances are very good you could find somebody who is in fact willing to do the work of two people or three or four. You probably could find an individual who was ready to work harder than he has to, twice as hard as he has to, in order so that you don't have to. And that person's called a husband. And not only will he do that for you, he's actually wired to. He will find the greatest satisfaction in his life doing that for you. But you are going to have to do things for him too. And one of the things you're going to have to do is show him the appreciation necessary, and realize on a daily basis, that this guy is working twice as hard as he has to so that you don't have to work at all. And that's a pretty big favor. So you better show some respect, and you better show some appreciation, and you'd better make his life as easy as possible for the parts of it that you can. This was the deal that humans have had for a long, long time, and it worked really well. And this is called the patriarchy. And the reason it's called the patriarchy is because it's male-centered. And the reason because it appears male-centered is because the men tend to have the money and the power. And the reason that the men have the money and the power is because they need money and power in order to feed their families. And men will work harder than they have to for themselves in order to provide nice things for the people that they love. I saw something the other day. It was just so true. It's just so obviously true. And it was just a guy in his mid-20s, and he was moving into this new, like, it was an inexpensive one-bedroom apartment. And the narrator said, if it were just men, this would be more than enough, a one-bedroom apartment with a place to sleep and a kitchen, you make some food, and a big TV and a video game thing. Your friends could come over, and you can bring a date over or whatever. But basically, the narrator said, "This is all men need, really," and it's true. It's 100% true. That's all they need. They're perfectly fine there. They don't. Most men don't need huge houses with expensive decorations, and most men don't really relish the idea of 3 weeks in Italy and 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 they don't see the need for really really nice 300 thread count sheets. And so why do they do this? So why do men work so hard? They work so hard because they want to give these things to their wives and their children. They work hard because they want their wives to be happy, and they like the way their faces light up when they get jewelry, and they like the look on their kids on Christmas morning. That's why they do it. But if they didn't have those things, they'd be perfectly happy to just be in a one-bedroom apartment and just chill. And I just think that's so true. It's so true. And not only are women not feminists, not only do they not appreciate it, they mock it, and they mock men, and they belittle them, and they say things like we don't need men and all the rest of it, and the men are just saying, okay, all right, this is what you want, this is what you get. We've allowed you to have feminism, and now you have feminism. And I've heard what's his name, Andrew Tate, I think, pointed out many times, but I've been saying it for years. Feminism exists because men allow it to exist. Well, what do you mean? I mean, you have the rights and the freedoms that you have because men allow you to have them. The patriarchy allows you to be a feminist. Patriarchy couldn't stop me. Oh, yes, it absolutely can. Yes, it absolutely can. We absolutely could stop this right now. Me and a couple of boys could run up there and take your purple-haired butt out back and beat the living crap out of you. And the only thing you could do about it is get on your phone and call other men to stop us, because that's the way it is, kid. And it's time for you to show a little bit of. We're not even asking for pleasantries anymore. We're just advising you in the same way I would advise a drunk about to cross a street that you might want to think twice about this before you keep this up, because it's not going to end well for you. And I don't care if you don't like it. That's the way it is. So, well, that was 3 hours and 37 minutes of bloviation and outgassing and all the rest of these things. But in any event, it was a lot of fun, and it was great questions tonight, and it's great to be back. I really can't believe how much nicer this place looks now that they cleaned it up. I was able to clean it up because my wife came in, and she didn't clean it up for me, but she told me what to do. I walk into a messy place, and I look at it, and I just think, and I am a very, very messy person. I'm not a slob to the degree that there's like food rotting, but I am not a tidy guy. A lot of chaos going on up here, a lot of things in motion, and this place just got worse and worse. And I said, both Natasha and our lovely Shelley, who's a third member of our family, just tell me what to do. To me, this looks hopeless. It just is. It looks hopeless, but nope, it's good. And I had a carpet cleaner, and everything's great. So it's looking cool, and all the rest of that stuff is happening. So anyway, I will. Thank you very much. Dave. Dave says, be on the lookout for a care package for you and Natasha, as well as for Natasha and Dion. That's very sweet of you. We will be looking. Thanks, everybody. Hope you got something out of it. And I always do, I always do. I always have a great time on these shows. Yes, and Gumman says you're going to leave the YouTube stream running all night. I think I probably will. Scott texted me on Tuesday at about 10 o'clock my time in the morning, Tuesday morning, and said, you seem to have left your stream running all night. And I texted him, I'll tell you exactly what I said. Scott said, I think you left the streaming service running on YouTube. And I said, well, given the vast mountain of technical expertise associated with my program, not to mention my extensive staff of full-time, fully trained, completely licensed tech individuals, I find this exceedingly unlikely, but I will check it in a few minutes. Thanks for the heads up. And Scott said, take your time. They're always making more internet. I just look at it as a gift to all. As Scott pointed out when we did the recording, he said, you know, the amazing thing about that is when I saw it, and it had been on for 13 hours, I forgot to stop the stream. He said, and there were 9 people still in there. There's nothing on the screen for 12 hours and 9 people. And they were just having a conversation. And I said to Scott, now you've really gotten down the basic essence of the Stratosphere Lounge. I'm just like white noise, like waves, you know, like waves crashing ashore. And then people come in and talk to each other, and they just get the, you know, it's kind of white noise thing. So really, me not being there is not going to have much effect on anything. But anyway, that's that. The show is made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com, and we're very grateful for all of the support, all support from all of you over the years. And I saw some things that really, really looked cool from this martini thing, and I'm looking forward to checking that out too. So have a weekend to play and get some things out, and the human adventure continues. So that'll do it. Thanks for being with us. We will see you guys on Monday night, and yeah, I guess that's about all I really need to say, isn't it? I don't think there's point in going any further. I think what's said is said, and what's done is done. And I'm Bill Burnett. We'll leave the stream on for you.